I'm getting left driving up and down the same old strip. I got a brand new place where the kids are here. My buddies and me, you're getting real well known. Yeah, the bad guys know us and we leave us alone. I give them
That was, of course, the Beach Boys with I Get Around, and you're listening to the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable, Episode 6, on the 15th of July, 2015. I'm your host, John LeBond, and I'm joined, as always, by Matrix Decode, live from Spain. Matrix, what did you make of that one?
Yeah, it's a good song. It's a funky song. Yeah, people getting around all right.
That's the way, and of course we've got with us, as usual, live from New York, Dave Weiss of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. Dave, thanks for setting the alarm clock the right time this morning, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much, John. Glad to be here. Was that a Beach Boys song special for our guest today?
Well, I've been trying to think of which tracks to play us in with, and I love the Hot Chip song that you recommended. I promise we'll play out with it tonight, but for some reason that one popped into my head the other day, and I thought we'll play that one on the next episode, and we've done it. I'm happy that we did, and we might as well go to Allegedly Dave. I'm going to call you Allegedly tonight because we've got the two Daves on the panel. Allegedly, you're coming to us from Britain, and how are you today?
I'm fine, mate. I despise the Beach Boys, but there you go. It's your choice.
you can make the next selection so long as you're here at the pre-production before the show on time. How's that sound?
Right on. Okay, I'll do that.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, I know that you guys are all excited to have our guest on tonight. I am as well, so let me get straight into reading out this little intro that I've put together. Our guest tonight made a cameo appearance on episode number 3 of the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable just days before his highly publicised laser test across water, which I'm sure he will tell us more about in just a moment. He began uploading videos about the Flat Earth and NASA fakery in February of this year and has already accumulated over 630,000 total views on his channel. He now has over 8,000 subscribers and a loyal following of people who contribute to his efforts to debunk the heliocentric model. Recently, our guest has attracted attention for debunking a well-known YouTube hoaxbuster, yet his witty mocking of NASA and other ball earthers is one of the things which endears listeners to him in the first place. We're joined tonight by, of course, Jeran Campanella, better known as Jeranism. Hope I pronounced that one properly this time. Jeranism, thanks for joining us.
Hey, nice to be here.
Now, of course, you were with us briefly on episode 3, Jeranism, but the listeners didn't really get much of a chance to get to know you because, of course, our guest that night was Mark Sargent. So I want to spend a few minutes tonight, before we get into all of the Flat Earth stuff, speaking a little bit about yourself. Do you want to tell us briefly, did you ever believe in the ball model? If you did, when did you change to the Flat Earth model? How did you get into all of this? Just give us a few minutes to get to know how you came to be doing the work that you're doing.
Sure. I would definitely say I was blind to the world basically all the way through my career as a store manager with a drugstore with CVS. I'm sure you've heard of them. They actually purchased the drugstore that I was a store manager for 14 years, which was Long's Drugs. You would only know that if you were West Coast, California, United States. So when I lost my job, which was 2012, I've always been a big reader. I have a big book collection. My wife has a big book collection. I've always liked to read. I wouldn't say I read books front page to back page. I'm a searcher. I like to search through books, and so just really was reading and studying. And both my wife and I were raised religious. Her Christian, and myself Catholic. But when we got married, we both were no longer practicing at all. And so we just kind of looking into our faith and kind of looking into our beliefs, and just saw that everything was, no matter where we looked, we just saw deception, and we're kind of getting frustrated and just said, why don't we really start over and just take everything from scratch. Don't trust anything anybody's ever told us if they don't deserve it, and go from there. And I still feel bad to this day because not much longer after that, maybe a week or two, my wife said something to the effect of, "What if the Earth is flat?" And I told her to shut the F up, because even though I said let's start from the beginning, let's start from scratch, that's the last thing I was talking about. And I said, how do planes go around? I mean, the same thing I hear from everybody. I was one of those. That was, probably 2012, 2013. And we just kept looking at things, and it wasn't until maybe November of 2014 that I guess the real thing that I kind of myself fell into was really saying NASA is faking everything. I was really big on the moon hoax, proved that to myself. Kind of from there, I said, well, now can I even trust space? And when I was able to kind of drop that, then it got to the Earth, and I still remember being in November, December, that it was gravity that really got me. That I remember reading the entire Wikipedia, top to bottom, on gravity, because I could not grasp it. I just could not understand the way that it's used and thrown around the term. Or you have ball earthers right now telling me, well, how do you explain gravity? It's like, why do I have to explain gravity? I don't understand. The same way they explained it in the year 1200. I mean, the fact that we stick to the Earth is we stick to the Earth. I don't need a formula to tell me that or anything else. So once I kind of had a problem with gravity, then it kind of came to the globe, and I remember waking up one morning, and I don't think I had a dream about it, but I had this picture of the globe in my mind spinning in space and flying through space, and the idea of everybody living there, and that was the last day I could ever even stomach it.
And so you're talking about, sorry, Jeranism, you're talking about late last year, is that right?
Yeah, it would have been about end of last year, and then my wife told me to do some videos, and I said I can't. I said I said nobody believes this. It's the biggest. This is the biggest cover-up there is, and I said I can't go out on my own and make these videos. Sorry, I'm getting feedback here on my mic. Hold on 1 second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Keep going.
Okay, thank you. No, so then she just said, well, why don't you try and make one and see how it goes? And I said, no. I said I just can't do it. And I looked up. I remember searching. This is probably maybe January. Because there wasn't at this time. Mark wasn't up there yet. Sargent's videos, and I saw Eric Dubé's stuff, and I went to his website. I forgot what it's called, Atlantic Conspiracy, and started reading some of the stuff, and it just really. And I still say to this day, me and Eric Dubé have a lot of the same flat Earth beliefs, but we were kind of I was just looking at that page, and I really said, okay, wait, now there is somebody else who's kind of seeing the same thing I am, but I still didn't feel comfortable in making a video like I would want to. I never wanted to be a stand-up comedian or anything, but as a kid, I always wanted to be a baseball announcer, and I like the idea of sitting and kind of talking and telling stories and teaching a little bit at the time. I'd never done any videos like this before, but I had an idea of how I would do them. Me personally, I don't like to watch videos where I have to read. That's just me personally. So I knew I didn't want to do videos where I just flash text across the screen. And I hate my voice, but that was something I was willing to get over. And I just said, well, I'll think about it. And then one day I searched again, and there was Flat Earth Clues. Just happened to be right there. And I said, well, what is this? This is new. And right from the first video, I was enthralled. I knew after the first video that I was going to make videos, because the way that he delivered it, very like it wasn't crazy. He didn't sound crazy, and all my points could be backed up, and that was the thing. I just wanted to challenge the globe people to kind of, and I think I don't know if you guys have looked into this, but the whole idea of how it got started. I mean, there was no way for them to prove it when Copernicus had the idea, or when Galileo, wrote his book. So these were just thoughts, and then I went back and kind of tried to look at the history, what happened from the mid 1600s, and it just kind of looks like it sets itself up for a deception. Is you've got people coming up with new theories based on things that were never proven, and then new theories on top of those theories, which are based on things that were never proven. And it just kind of got to the point where you saw what happened is somebody didn't want to even think of a geocentric universe anymore, and so they just adopted one or the other. And there's some great quotes by people who have said that you can construct this, mathematically, either a geocentric or a heliocentric, or even as far as a sphere or a flat Earth, and it be mathematically correct. So when I started seeing that, that's what I thought that they did. That's what I still think that they did. And it just sucked because I know I went to school just like everybody else, and not one time did I ever sit in a class and think, this teacher's lying to me. Everything I thought, they knew the truth, that this is what I was doing in school, was learning the truth. And I remember asking, I always had a problem with the spinning Earth as a kid. I can remember asking my mom 5 times, like really, like, I don't understand. What do you mean we're spinning? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. I don't even think I ever bought into it, even though I never went beyond that to think, well, then how is the sun passing? I didn't get into that. I just didn't believe we were spinning. I couldn't grasp that. People would say, well, you're born into it. And I'd say, well, I still don't get that. I said, if it just didn't make any sense to me. So, yeah, it was. I mean, I even went to an all boys Catholic Jesuit run high school, and when you go to one of those and you're taught by Jesuit priests, these guys were forcing science. That's all they talked about. And at the time, you don't think anything of it. You think, well, look how far the Catholic Church has come. They're out of the Dark Ages, now they're preaching science. But I mean, they were pushing this stuff hard, and you just start to see the deception. You really can see what happened.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do, Jeranism. We'll come back and have a broader discussion about, I guess, the history of the heliocentric model later in the show. Just going back to what you said about Mark Sargent, do you remember how early into Mark Sargent's, I guess, meteoric rise to flat Earth fame, if you like, do you remember how early it was in the piece that you first discovered him?
I think it was 2 days after he posted that.
And that was what prompted you to want to make your own videos, almost overnight.
Yeah, I actually haven't looked before how close we are in our videos, but yeah, that was the thing for me, is that I didn't want to be the only one, and then even Eric Dubay doesn't really kind of tell a story or talk to you. He kind of will show some clips, or we'll do an interview, those kind of things. And I knew I wasn't who's going to interview me. I'm making my first video. So my problem was the only way I could make a video was I knew I could throw together some stuff on Windows Movie Maker, images. I like to draw on the little Real World Paint application. So I knew that's what it had to be, was me just kind of drawing it out for people, draw the globe, show planes going upside down, show birds flying upside down. That's how I wanted to do it, and then talk to people. And if they all thought I was an idiot, well then, so be it. But I didn't want to be the only one. Then I thought it would be like really bad. So when I saw Mark's, I thought, he's doing it and he doesn't sound crazy. And I almost thought, people start saying that, I'll just point at him.
Fair enough. Well, look, we've got a round table format for a reason. So we'll go around the round table, get some questions about Jeranism and his, I guess, waking up to the flat Earth model. And then we'll get into some more heavier topics later on. We'll start with you there, Matrix, live from Spain. Any questions you want to ask Jeranism early in the piece?
Hey, Jeranism. Good to have you on the show. Yeah, I've got a question for you. Regarding Mark Sargent's clues, which of the clues piqued your interest the most?
I certainly don't know any of them by number. I wasn't a big fan of one, because I guess when he was saying think of space movies, I was thinking of some space movies, and he didn't seem to. I wasn't really connecting with that one, but I also didn't think that would be a reason to believe in it or not believe in it. So that one was easy to toss. But I would say after that, Admiral Byrd. In all my research, I had never come across that. As far as that interview that he gave when he said there was resources, vast resources, and I had never seen that interview. So that was, just got to add that to my binder. And there was the Southern Flights. I had kind of already myself come to the conclusion that, and I still do think, MH370 was lost because of the fact that we can't cover the amount of distance that's in the southern hemisphere on a flat Earth map with land-based satellites. So that's the reason that. So when he brought in they disappear off the tracker apps or the tracker sites, that just kind of completed that for me. So it just kind of seemed like it was a confirmation. The ice wall I had seen, and had looked into a lot of like the Robotham, his book. I read that towards the end of last year. So I already had that kind of thought. The moon and the sun, he didn't really talk a lot about that though. That was later. Yeah, I guess that was pretty much the only ones that I can remember. I liked his Souls video that came out later, because I did think, I said, if you're going to talk about this, I know what kind of questions people are going to ask. And so I was kind of wondering why he didn't cover it at all, but then he did cover it. I think that was his last video or something. So I liked it all. I didn't think there was any that I hated. I think that even the first one with the movies is, I could understand that. They never went to the moon in a movie because it would look the same. So I would say that was my favorite one.
Cool, thanks. Allegedly, Dave, have you got a question for Jeranism?
Yeah, I'd love. Oh, good. Allegedly, Dave. Sorry.
Get your Daves right. Yeah, it's a similar kind of question, really. For me, it was the Samuel Rowbotham canal experiment that really piqued my interest and started turning my mind around to this view. Was there a particular moment, a particular experiment, or piece of evidence that actually just changed your mind suddenly?
Yeah, I think it was whether water. I was thinking in my head that we live by the beach, and I have lived in Monterey also, and I always kind of thought that maybe there was a visible hump, but I knew that even from my perspective, it never seemed like very much. So when I started to look into water, and I said, well, water does lay flat. So I said, maybe this is a perception issue. I don't know what's going on there. So I went to look into the water, and then I wanted to see what the curve would be between two distances. And I think I started outrageously with Hawaii and California, just because I said, for me, that's something I can picture. I've been to Hawaii, I've flown there. So I said, let me look up those distances, and I plugged it into this little equation, and it came out with 40 or 50 million feet. And I said, no, something's wrong here. Divided that by 12, and then divided that further, or by 5280, and kept coming out with 670, 770 numbers in that region, and I couldn't grasp what that was. This is 770 feet. Like, okay, I think that's. And then when I looked further into it and saw what I was coming up with, I said, there's no way. I said, there's no way it's 770 miles of curvature. So then I took that distance and looked at California to New York and said, how could there be 770 miles of curvature? You don't drive over a hill when you drive from, you go over the Rocky Mountains. How tall are those? 15,000 feet? I'm talking 770 miles. You're talking 3 miles versus 770. So then it was gung-ho. From there, I knew I could get yelled at find this one of the guys, Red's Rhetoric or something, that likes to make a video every day where he cusses me out. And it's just, I don't really care, because I used to say to myself, eventually he'll have to give me an apology. But I wrote him a little comment yesterday. I'm like, well, I don't think that point will ever come, because he's so into it, he'll kill himself if it ever comes out. He can't even operate his mind without the thought. And these guys all think I came out of the dirt believing in flat Earth. They don't understand that I went to school like you all did. I believed the same things you do. I just had to remove myself from it and really start to dig deep. But he won't even look at it. So it just gets. it gets hard because when I find facts like that are so evident to me, and when I can explain them to somebody right to their face and they just pass it off as I didn't say anything. But a lot of these guys are the same guys that will tell me that a plane hit the Pentagon on 9/11. So, you know, I mean, I can't communicate with people like that because I can't. I mean, I'll talk to you, but I can't have a rational conversation, or I can't expect you to understand where I'm coming from if that's where you're coming from, you know?
Yeah. The curvature thing is a good one. I mean, that led me to discover that salt flats in Bolivia. I don't know if you've come across it.
I've seen pictures. Unbelievable.
Yeah, 80 miles long and one. I think it's 80 miles across and 100 miles or something the other way, and it's completely and utterly flat. That's just, yeah. I mean, you can't argue with that, really. I did have somebody who said that. Oh, well, there obviously are some flat spots on the planet.
I've heard that too.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, well, then where are you doubling up this curve then? Show me that spot. You know, you're going to have to make up for the lost curvature somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, how does that work? How does a planet suddenly get a flat spot? Did somebody hit it with a hammer or something? I mean,
that's when we ran into Mars or something.
Even if there was a flat spot, let's say, you know, the Earth was carved out, you know, a big flat spot, according to Ball Earth theory, the water should still bow. You know, the land is flat. You know, that's like saying there's a flat spot on the side of a hill. A lake's not going to stay on the side of a hill. It's got to follow the curve of the supposed Ball Earth. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, and I think you'd have to make up for it. I could see how one section could be, you know, flatter than another. Like say the salt flats for 18 miles for whatever reason packed up and became flat. But if it was still a ball, well, then you have to make up for that flatness, meaning somewhere else is twice as curved. So, where's that curve? Show me that curve.
And also, when it rains, literally you get like a few inches of water over the top of it, and it goes like a mirror. Well, over 80 miles or something, again, there should be a bow of water, in the middle somewhere. So, you know, where's that?
Yeah, and it's just, you know how water, I always was describing at the beginning like the letter N and an underscore. I said, you know, you're talking about a letter N of water, and I'm telling you it'll end up as an underscore. So how does it stay in the letter N formula? And they bring that word gravity back, and I just say, well, you're talking about the same force that holds literally, I'm guessing, billions, trillions of pounds of water. That same force holds me to the Earth or a 6-pound baby and doesn't crush it to pieces. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and they use gravity as an absolute sort of an absolute thing. So I ask those people, you know, which absolute concept of gravity you're talking about? Newton's absolute concept or Einstein's absolute concept? I mean, if they're plastic, I mean, you know. Surely there could be another possibility.
Yeah, they just insert it here, insert it there. It never made any sense to me when I really started looking at all that stuff in the past. And I mean, Einstein, when he had to pull his theory because Hubble found that the universe was expanding, he pulled the cosmological constant, and I still see it in equations today. I'm reading things, well, we use the cosmological, like, wait a second, I just saw that Einstein said it's no longer applicable. But it's the whole thing same thing with, you know, like you said, Newtonian gravity, when you start having to say, well, are we in an inertial frame? Are we in a moving frame? Are we in a speeding frame? It just gets so convoluted that there can be no truth in it. And that's my whole problem with it, is I kept saying, no, things need to match our reality. And what they did was they made mathematics prove our reality. And that's fine if we observe what the proof is in reality, but we don't. So then I said, you just wrote a math equation that, great, it's proven, but where is it shown in my reality? It's not.
And you were saying earlier, Jeranism, that it was gravity that you had a big problem with towards the end of last year. Do you remember roughly when it was that you first said to yourself in your own mind, I have given up on the Ball Earth model, I am a flat earther? Do you remember roughly when that was? Can you talk us through the experience of going from a Ball Earth believer to a flat earther? Yeah,
it would have been about when I was kind of looking at the numbers I knew that the math would prove the globe. There's no other way that they would have it this long unless math proved it. But I said, let me see what the math is. And like I said, I remember waking up one morning and having this vision of the upside down person in Australia, and that had always been explained away to me easy, and I always just accepted the explanation of, well, this person, it's the reference, it's from their perspective, they're right side up, and from your, okay, I get it, whatever. Well, because everything's pulled to the center, okay, everything's pulled to, I just kind of kept buying it. But then I woke up one morning and just, that picture came in my head of kind of, if you just picture a huge globe right now and then picture people standing everywhere on it. And at that point, I realized there's not even directions on a globe. If you took every single person and they were all standing all around the globe and you told them to all look north, every single person would look in a slightly different area, but I mean, they would all be looking in millions of areas. Think of the person who's, say, just slightly up from the bottom of the globe, looking north. Well, they're going to be looking out, way out past 3 o'clock, let's say, or to the right, because they're facing that way. That's north to them on a globe, because they're going to look and it's going to come back around. But all that stuff started hitting me just to where I couldn't grasp it anymore, and I still do. I laugh at it. I really think that it's fantasy. That's when I got into the whole. I don't know if you guys have seen the logo I use on some of my videos. It's got a globe crying, just because I knew at that point that so many people were going to be upset, but it was clear to me that it was not possible. You can't have. It's magic when you say, well, that person down below you is actually right side up for their perspective. I said, no, they're not, because I'm right side up at the top of the globe. So how can they all, if they're also right side up, it's a flat Earth. There's nothing else. You can't just tell me gravity. And then I started looking into gravity, and you can't even, like I said, I read the whole thing, and at the end of it, I felt stupider. I mean, I couldn't grasp how does the sun choose what force of gravity to throw on each planet? They all have these orbits, but they can't just be who's deciding the orbits. Who's deciding that it doesn't go in order by weight. That would make sense to me if you said, well, the Earth weighs this many tons, and then the Mars weighs this many tons, and as it went out, it was exponential, and it made sense with the distances from. They don't make any sense. They make no sense at all. You've got planets that rotate in different ellipses, and Neptune goes up above everything, and I mean, it just made no sense to me. I said, this isn't reality, it's make-believe. They constructed something that was make-believe.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we'll move on to the next topic soon. Just quickly, we've got more than 50 people watching live. In the live chat, Gino says, it's weird that Hollywood never made any movies about the moon landings, and Go Away says, the moon landings were the movies. Of course, there was that film, supposedly, it was a film, like a 3-hour film, about the process of selecting the astronauts. I forget the name of that film. So there was that one. But other than that, there's been a complete dearth of official Hollywood films about going to the moon. There was, of course, Capricorn 1, which was a film about faking a mission to Mars. And many of the scenes were framed just like the landings on the moon. I don't know too many people who are genuinely objective who still believe the moon landings are real. We'll talk more about that later, but we need to move on to the first proper topic for you, Jeranism, and that's to talk about your 4-mile laser test. Now, the last time you were on the show, we had you on last minute, and you were talking about a test that you were planning to do near to where you live. I think you're on the West Coast there in California, correct me if I'm wrong. So
Yep.
In the time since we last spoke to you, you've conducted the test. There were some issues with it at first. You've since uploaded the video. Do you want to give the listeners, many of whom already know this, but for those who don't, do you want to give them an idea of what happened with the test, the issues that you faced, the ways that you rectified them, the everything that's happened since then? Do you want to listen to all of that? The floor is yours.
Okay. And I hope that everybody, and I know that most people were not upset at me, but I went into the whole thing telling people I've never done this before. Even as far as live streaming, I've never live streamed anything. So I went into all this kind of with an open thing saying, hey, I'm willing to do these things. I want to do them. I know I would enjoy them, but I didn't know what I was doing. And so when the 4-mile laser test, when I got the laser from one of my viewers, and my wife and I went and checked out the area, and everything looked great. We even shot the thing across real quick. It was extremely bright, scared me, because I said, I think the cops are going to come. I think, But I shot it across. We saw it hit the other side. I said, okay, well, now we know it hits the other side. And then I had a guy email me and say he knew of a photographer that would possibly videotape it and give us a deal. And I kind of announced that on my channel, and then real quickly that was starting to be funded when Eric Dubay came and paid the whole $200, and that was awesome. So then I had a videographer ready. We looked at the weather. We planned everything out. It's going to be on a Thursday, I think, and it was supposed to be really gorgeous. So everything was looking good. We got there like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and checked things out, my wife and I, and things looked great. I wanted to get there early in case it was bad weather or something, because I knew I would have to cancel the photographer. Well, we kind of did some more looking around, and sure enough, like at 6 o'clock, there just came this low fog layer that took the whole horizon out of view. It also covered all of Santa Cruz, and right away I was upset because I knew at this point it was already too late to call off the photographer, and I had all these people waiting for me in live chat or in the live stream. So I was kind of at an end point. I didn't know whether to ask him to go home. I knew he got there at 7:30, and then have to cancel everybody. I said, well, let's just try and see what happens. Well, he showed up, and we couldn't get the two pieces of footage that I really wanted to get, which was a boat going over the horizon, and also you can see Santa Cruz from where we were at Lovers Point in Monterey, which is about 45 miles away. No way you should be able to see the shore at all. But again, there was a fog layer covering all that. I started to get a couple Skype messages and text messages from people saying people were getting tiresome in the live stream, and I'm looking at the sky. It's like 8 o'clock, 7:45, and I could tell it wasn't going to be dark for a while. And so it just kind of hit me like, man, I planned the wrong time for this. I didn't really know what I was getting into as far as how long my phone would last. We got out there, and you're using not the Wi-Fi, but the regular cell service, and I'm live streaming from the beach. Well, that thing ate my battery in a matter of a half hour, and unfortunately, if you ever use the Ustream live stream app, there's no indicator on that thing of what your battery's at. Usually, most apps you'll have at least be able to look up and see what you had. So while we were waiting for it to get dark to do the test, my phone I think I hung up with everyone because we needed to call my wife, who had gone over to the other side, make sure she was where she was supposed to be. Well, hung up with that, tried calling her, my phone died in 2 seconds. And then it hit me like, uh-oh, my phone just died. My wife has taken my car with the charger and has driven to the other side of the ocean. And here's me and this photographer. There's really nothing he can do now. And now everybody's sitting at home and just got the live feed dropped. So it was disheartening, but I mean, I knew I wasn't, it was nothing of my own fault. I guess didn't plan well enough or whatever. So my wife did get over there, and I said, well, let's go ahead and just see what happens. And we shot it across off the tripod, and she described it as being a big blotch. And I kept saying, what do you mean? She said, well, the light over here is hitting the shore, but it's huge. And I thought the whole time, this is a 1,000 milliwatt laser, I never even thought that beam would not carry across the 4 miles as the same size as we saw it coming out of the laser from our side. So then it kind of hit me, okay, I see, I could imagine it would grow a little. I said, so you're talking about a foot circle? And she said, oh no, this is like 10, 20 feet. And so at that point I said, oh man, I said, all right, I'm just going to call the whole thing. I said, let's just call it, come back. And I was upset and said, well, this means the whole laser thing was kind of a waste. So she was kind of getting stuff together over there, and it just hit me for a second that I kind of shined the light down towards the floor, towards the sand, and I just told her, hey, can you look through your camera, zoom in over here, and tell me if you see the light? And she zoomed in, and she said, yeah, I see it. I said, you can see this green, and I was shining it maybe a foot off the sand, at the sand. And she said, yeah, I see it. I said, can you crouch down like you're a catcher, and tell me if you still see it? And she said, yeah. So then I said, okay, well now at 4 miles, where the kind of breaking point for us was 10 feet, that would be where the curvature would be. Well, I was a foot off the ground on this side. She was 3 feet off the ground on that side. And so I was kind of tying it together, like, I think we just proved it right now. So I said, what we'll do is we'll come back tomorrow, And I said, rather than do it the way we were going to do it by shooting that laser all the way across, I said, why don't we have the cameraman come here? And I asked him, will you come back tomorrow? I'll pay you out of my own pocket. And why don't you zoom in with your camera? We'll be on the other side, and I'll shine that light off like a backboard, and we'll see how low you can see it. So he was game, so we decided to do the next night, which is when I think we got the good results. Easily he could see it in the video. I probably should upload a better quality one because it's not as easily seen as the actual real video that I have. But it's clear that without a doubt he could see it even when I got up to, down around seriously like 6 inches, even lower he saw it 1 inch. But I don't need to make those claims, so I don't mind saying he saw it at a foot, because if his camera's at 3 feet and mine's at a foot, then it's still proven. So once we started seeing that, that's when I knew these tests would be really helpful. Our problem was the next test I went to, me thinking I'm a big boy, I said, let's do 13.25 miles. So that was about a week ago that we went and did that, and that was a nightmare, mostly because the weather twice was treacherous, and no matter what we did, the camera would not see the light. It had nothing to do with a curvature, because she just couldn't see the light. My wife couldn't see the light at all. Even when I shined it up in the sky, to the right, to the left, anything, she could not see it. Granted, right behind me was, I don't know if you know anything, we have these PG&E smokestacks in a town called Moss Landing, which is up the Highway 1 in California. And these smokestacks were right behind me. And they're huge. They're like a landmark in this area. And so I think it was just a lot of light problems she couldn't see. And when I was shining the laser light, I kind of looked at it and said to myself, I could see how this was seen at 4 miles, but I was thinking it was so hard to see it at 4 miles. Why did I think that we could just jump to 13.25 miles and still see the light? I said, now I don't even like the laser anymore, because if I'm going to go further, I want one of those ultra lumen, real bright lights. So it's just kind of been going through all these things, these processes. So then we cut it back, and I said, I think we could see the laser at 8. I said that, I think, and then I would be done with the laser. I've already told the guy who gave it to me that I want to give it back to him. I said, let me just finish with these final tests. So we scheduled 8 for last night, and we were excited about that because we did it the night before. My wife and I went at 10 o'clock at night because it's really easy to see when it's night, like I said. She was able to find me real quick. We were able to see. By far, we would be 20 feet under the amount of curvature is supposed to be there. And what she's able to do now is she locks in her location, I lock in my location, and then we get the degrees that she's pointed at. Now, the reason we're doing that is since it's so easy to see at night, then we come back the next day. That's what we tried doing with the 13.25, but didn't work. But come back the next day, and she just gets back in the same position. I get in my same position, and even if it's getting twilight or it's not, it's just easier to, where each other are. It's because you can't see that far. You can't see 8 miles. Even with the zoomed-in camera, she can never see my person. So knowing exactly where I am is all the difference in the world. That's something that we were doing before, like live with people, trying to chat with me on the Ustream, or and we're trying to line each other up, and it's a painful process because I don't have any kind of tools like a street leveler would, or a surveyor. We're doing everything with iPhone apps and trying to see each other and trying to wave flashlights, and it's just it's fun. I love doing it. But once we did that, what I had gotten instead, because I always look at what people's complaints are about the tests and then try and fix them accordingly. And one of the complaints was, hey, the one that you proved the 4 miles, you shot the green laser off a white poster board. And I said, yeah, but there was no, because I was holding it not more than 2 inches from the actual poster board, I said there was no reflection. We could see that from where I was. They said, nah, it still could reflect. It could reflect up above the hill. I said, okay, I see what you're saying, and I agree. If I was fighting it too, I wouldn't accept evidence unless it was convincing to me. So we kind of came back to the drawing board on that and decided, black would eat the color. And I said, but it would still, on a board, to me, it could make a reflection. So then we got into this idea of if we had a box, like a 3x3, or the one we use is about 2x2x2, 2x2x2 box with one side open. So now you've kind of created like a cubby, and then by me shining the light in the black cubby, what it does is creates like a glowing square box orb. I don't know how to describe it. A glowing cube. And it doesn't, because the light gets eaten up by these black sides and the black back, you don't see anything outside of it. In fact, you can stand to the side of the box and you won't see any green laser light coming outside of the box. It's all within. And this is kind of my idea, because the next thing I'm going to try and purchase is one of those, they're crazy, 16,000 lumen flashlights. They light up football fields. And with that, I think the sky's the limit. I don't know how far we'll be able to go and keep seeing it, but the goal is to keep going. But I knew that the laser was getting to the end. It created a nice little glow box, and so we were ready to do that. We, like I said, we drove home, came back the last night, had people on the live feed. I was kind of showing people the sunset. It was about twilight, which I've found is the best time. Nighttime, you can't see good in the camera. Daytime, you can't even see the light. So right about sunset is perfect. You can see the light. You can see the camera can zoom in and not get diffused. So I was getting ready to call my wife to tell her to go ahead and turn on the camera from her end. And I called her and no answer, and I called her and no answer, and I called her, and now I'm getting frustrated. Like, this is, we made sure our batteries were charged, made sure that the laser battery was charged, made sure the camera battery was charged. We had everything lined up. There's nothing that could possibly go wrong. But I kept calling her, nothing. So I kind of went back to the live chat and was talking to people and getting nervous, like, what is she doing? Next thing I know, I get a call from a random number in Monterey, and I answer it, and she's crying on the other end, saying that she was down by the water, and the tide was coming in and took out half her body and completely washed her phone out. So she had to run to a diner, which is next to the beach where she was at, and call me from the diner. So now I'm like all upset, because I'm like, man, it doesn't seem like anything ever goes right when I try to do these stupid live things. And I'm really just trying to do them to kind of show people so that they can see. I know a lot of people can't go to the beach and can't see what we're seeing, so I think it's cool if we can do it and everybody watch it. And the time that we did it was exciting for everybody when we did the 4 miles. And Murphy's Law, right? And the one thing that I didn't think about, that the waves are going to wash up and take out my wife, was not something I had thought about. But I should have thought about it actually on my side, because when I got there, I'd never seen the tide out that far. Completely sucked out. And in fact, on my video, you can actually see 2 or 3 couples that almost get wiped out to sea, because it's like a big bowl is empty. And when it came in, it comes in heavy. So she happened to take the worst of that. And so that's what happened last night. So we're going to do it again tonight. Hopefully the tides are better and the weather's better. But we'll keep doing it till we show it. I already know it's been proven. I've already seen it. So at this point, I just want to get good footage of it. I think that's important. I'm in this for myself as well. I mean, obviously, I could just move on to my next experiment because I've already seen it. But at the same time, I like everybody we're all learning this together. I don't know any more than anybody else. I'm just willing to kind of talk about some stuff on videos and get people to open their minds. And people have helped me a ton. People have sent me email after email of pointing this out and pointing that out. And I'm also always willing to change my mind. I go back and forth all the time between dome, no dome, the moon's a sphere, the moon's a flat disk. And I don't see the problem with that. These guys that want to debate and tell me, well, where's your evidence for the way the sun moves? I just always go to the same line. I said, your scientists had 400 years to craft their perfect mathematical model that doesn't even work in reality. I said, tell you what, I'm twice as good as them. Give me 200 years, I'll have every fact in the book for you. But I can't give you that in 3 months. It's just impossible. And my wife always reminds me too. She goes, who cares? The moon works, the sun works. What is it? What would we get out of knowing exactly how it works? Is it really that important? And to me, it's just not. I mean, I do want to look into things and see how everything ties in, but if I spent a month or 2 months and found out exactly the method of the moon or the sun, I don't know where that really moves me. I already know the Earth is flat or not a ball. I would say is a better interpretation of my current thoughts, because I mean Mark describes that little model he has, looks like a donut was stuck in cement or something, and I can't say that that's not legit. In fact, from my laser experiments, they've seemed to me to be far too easy. So I don't think there's any curvature, but I don't know if that means that there could be. I'm sure you guys have seen when you look out at the ocean rises. It actually rises to your eyesight. So, and I'm not a physicist, I'm not a mathematician, so a lot of these things are hard for me to wrap my head around. I do a lot of model drawing and trying to get the idea, because that still doesn't make sense to me, that the water actually does rise to your eyesight. I know that's not a measurable amount, something you could measure. But those are the kind of things that I'm learning every day. We're out there, we're having fun. And you can't learn if you don't learn something new every day. So that's what we're doing.
So, Jeran, this is Dave. When you say the ocean rises to your eyesight, you're talking about the horizon rising to eye level?
No, I mean, if you think about the water would start at my feet, right? That's where the water meets the sand. So if you think about where the water ends at my eye height. So that's, for me, 6 foot. So somehow the water rises 6 feet. It could be perceptually, but what I'm saying is that water, if you're thinking of, when they say like a boat goes over the edge, and I haven't completely come up with a theory that works for me with that, because I do think it's just a mirage. It's just, the fact is though that water needs to get up to my eyesight. So if it needs to go back down on the other side, I'm not talking about anything that would create a curvature of the water. I'm talking about perception-wise. And I think that's what the boat is. The boat is simply your perception, because that water rises up to your eyesight. If the boat is beyond the maximum of your eyesight, well, how could it not be lower than the water, which has to rise to my eyesight? It's kind of hard to explain, but tonight I might take a movie of it, because last night we thought, when you're driving on Highway 1 in Monterey, there's one stretch of the freeway there where it's much higher than the ocean, and you're looking through hills to your right-hand side, and you can see the ocean. It is the scariest thing you've ever seen. It looks like the ocean is taller than the hills, and it's going to come right at you and kill you. The reason why is because when you're on that freeway and you turn and look out there, the water needs to go to your eye level. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. The water goes up over the hill and then looks like a big tsunami wave. You would not even believe it if you saw it. It's literally scary. But you know by looking at it something's wrong. You're just looking at it saying, that's not what is going on, that's not right. Then you pass a couple more hills and the freeway comes back down, and you can see the water come back down to your eye level. So I'm still doing a lot of studying and trying to figure out exactly what that means, because it's not a measurable thing. It's simply my eyes. But for instance, if I'm driving on that road and there's a boat out there, I'll never see that boat, because the boat's going to be on the other side of what came up to my eye level. So I think what we see when we see the little bottom of the boat disappear in those little videos, most of them are faked, but the ones that are actually legit, I think is just your perception. I don't know who gave us who put a limit on what we can see, but there's a limit.
So that's the one thing that really got me, was the horizon rising to eye level. When you look at, into the distance, our perception shows us the sky coming down and the land or the water rising and meeting in the middle, and then our eyes only have a limitation on how far we can see. If something goes beyond that visual point, you break out a telescope. If the weather is clear enough, you can see it again. We've all, in this group have seen that phenomena. That's the number one thing. Jumping back a little bit, I wanted to ask you, when you're very, you love the math, you love the physical experiments versus other people's styles of talking about this flat Earth versus ball Earth in different ways, and I like the physical proof side. The horizon rising to eye level, the pictures are from on top of Everest. If you look, you can see 200 miles, and you can see the sky meeting the land. On everywhere, on an airplane, if you haven't done it with this new thought, if you think about being on an airplane, oh yeah, I saw the curve of the Earth, but then you fly in an airplane again and you look and you go, oh no, it's right there at eye level.
Right.
People, when you throw these facts out at people, all the experiments you're doing, and the ones, there's different groups of people. There's people that are like, what are you talking about? Let me look into that deeper. Oh, wow, that's interesting. And there's other people that refuse to look. And then there's also possibly another group of people that are here with a different agenda to hide this information. And it's very easy to accuse people of being in that third group, but I like to lean away from that. I just think that
so do I. It's funny that you don't say the word, because neither do I.
Yeah, it's so when you show people proof, like our good friend that we were talking about prior to the show, we'll just call him Pre. He looks at the horizon and says, oh, that's not at eye level. You're looking down at that, of course. It's obvious from where the camera is, where the video, lens is. The horizon is always level, even from the the Red Bull space jump. When they opened up the door, there's the horizon.
Right there, level as can be,
and level as can be. And then they break out the fisheye lens 4 or 5 or 7 seconds later, and there's the curve, curvy as can be.
And that ball looks like it would be a little tiny ball. It doesn't even look like it hurt.
So my question is, and I want to know how you handle this. People will attack you saying, of course the Earth is a ball. Flat is stupid. It's a ball. We've always known it's a ball, and you're an idiot, right? And that's basically all the proof that they have. I throw out there, can you just give me one piece of evidence that the Earth is a ball? What is your comeback? What is your go-to line when you have somebody that is possibly in that third group?
I would say I go through each of the speeds. Sometimes I'll just go with them and I'll say, okay, you're right. All right, you're spinning 1,000 miles per hour. You're going 66,000 miles per hour around a sun. That orbit takes you 584 million miles. Okay, and the sun's going around the galaxy at 500,000 miles. I understand that, and the galaxy's going around the universe at 1.3 million miles per hour. And then I say, something like the stars always stay in the same spot. I could see that, 1.3 million miles per hour. You figure that out, times 24 times 365. You can get, I think it's about 500 billion or something miles that we travel in a year. And I say, and I've lived here 35 years, and the stars are in the exact same spot they were when I was born. I kind of think that's my way of getting people to realize what you have to believe in the globe. It's not as simple as saying, well, there's gravity, and it makes sense that we all are held and pulled to the center. There's so much more that goes into what you have to believe in the globe. You have to believe in all those speeds and how they coincide with each other, and how we would never feel a thing. I mean, yeah. But then they say, well, what about earthquakes? I say, come on. I mean, think of how fast we're going, and I'm sitting right here in my chair right now. It's impossible. It's not even a question anymore. So I try and go at that route. I usually don't go with the tell me one reason you think it is, because I know they've got a ton. And none of them are proven. It's like I said, you always hear the people ask you, well, how do you account for gravity? Or they'll say, well, how is the sun and moon held up in the sky? I'll say, how the hell is your sun and moon held up in the sky? You just have accepted the word gravity and created okay, now it's all held together by this magical force, and then you're going to question me on what mine's held together. Well, mine's navity. So, I mean, it's like, they're just laughable to me. I've kind of had to learn to just shake it off. But I would go with that one. I throw in a lot of, at the end of that, I might throw something like, and we all evolved from fish, just because I think that's also just funny to me, and they all seem to be in that category, where they've just accepted everything science says. So, and I myself was one of them. I mean, some I kind of skipped of my whole story, but I was a atheist for 6 months, a year, when I was so fed up with the church that I became an atheist and I really believed there was no God and believed that there was evolution. And my problem was I started wanting to debate Christians, and I wanted to learn more about what I was debating about. And I went and looked into this stuff, and it made no sense. There There's no absolute no proof. The things that they call evidence are not. And I always say in my videos, I'm not that smart, but I'm not that stupid. You know, and I'm not saying I'm smart, but I'm able to, and I think it's a gift that we all have, is we have that brain that allows you to take in information, match it with your life, with what you see, with what you feel, and get rid of it if it's no good, and move on. And if there's good parts to it, people say they hate the Bible. I don't hate the Bible. I think the Bible's got great things in it. You know, I don't think that it's God's word, but I also, it's written by people who cared more about the truth than people who write today, or people who give us direction, or school books and science books. I mean, those were paid for by some corporation to be made with the exact info they wanted in them. So I give the Bible more credit than I'll give those books. So I'm just different because I just take what I hear, and I want to hear everything. I would never not want to hear somebody's side of the story. Let me hear it, and then I'll tell you whether or not it fits my world. And that's how I kind of come to everything. Is Mark Sargent says that we're you know, a Truman Show project, or you know, I take each of those things and look at them. He thinks that the heating of the earth or the seasons comes from underneath. You know, that's something I think about and really kind of, have I ever felt this heat coming from the ground? Have I, you know, and I kind of weigh through it, and at the end come out with my opinion. And it just really feels good. It feels a lot better than going through life for the first 33 years where it was, I believe this because so-and-so says, and I believe Jesus is my Savior because my priest says, and I believe that, you know, this is true because the book says. And I mean, it just is a completely different lifestyle where you're able to finally say, screw it, I'm in charge. I'll say what I feel. And I like when people say they don't agree with me, because then we have a conversation. I mean, I've had so many conversations over the last 2 weeks about the disk. Well, I think it's a disk moon. I think everything about it points to a disk. And I want to have arguments with people who tell me it's a sphere, because convince me. That's great. I would love to. I'll switch. I mean, I'm not tied to any theory. I'm not tied to any method. I just want to know the truth. And that's why I tell people too on my videos, don't research things that I'm researching, because I feel like I'm already doing that. I'm going to find the answer eventually here. You go look somewhere else so you can find something and tell me that. I mean, I just think that's how all learning should be. Imagine if we all just went out and learned and taught each other, and you know, okay, I'll learn about this today, and you learn about that, and I mean, that's what's so stupid about schooling. I know in America, at least, going to school here, they completely give you the curriculum, the answers, here's your test, and then they tell you that you're smart when you pass that test. And if you go to college and take more tests, you're even smarter. And it's not true. What they're teaching you is what they want you to believe is the truth. And that's not how school should be. I mean, it should be debates. Why can't we have a debate in 6th grade of some smart kids? Man, I want to hear them debate about the flat earth versus the sphere earth. Let them take a week to get in groups and come up with ideas and come up with experiments. And I mean, you know, kids are smart, and we would get so many answers to the world problems. I mean, think about these drug companies that just keep pumping these medicines out, and they're not even, why would they try for a cure? What difference is it? They lose money when they get the cure. They don't make the drug anymore. So imagine if we had these medical students actually trying things and testing things, rather than saying, this is the answer for this, and how do we treat cancer with this, and how do we, you know, it's just not the way learning should go. How you can have right and wrong answers in science when science says itself is not about, you know, proving something true. How do you have a test that gives right and wrong answers? Science is ever growing. Science is ever changing. It's challenging everything that's the current accepted, you know, facts. You should be challenging those. The person who gets an A in science should be the person who challenges the facts they give you, not the person who repeats them. I mean, it's just crazy to me. It's that we've gone completely backwards, and now you've got these people walking around saying they're intellectuals, and they're not. They're intellectuals because they were taught they were intellectuals, and that doesn't make you smart in my book.
Yeah.
So
cool. Sorry, Dave. Yeah, I just wanted to interject there regarding the Bolivian salt flats that you brought up earlier. You know, that was formed over thousands of years because, like, water always levels out, and this leads us to doing this experiment that you've been doing, Jeranism, across water. Your 4-mile test, and soon to be the 8-mile test. The curvature experiment is a very important and big proof for the flat Earth. And one of the criticisms I had of your last experiment was I couldn't really see clearly the whiteboard or yourself on the other side. It was so I hope you can upload a video, a better quality video to demonstrate that in the future. I mean,
I just got new. Yeah, okay, I got new software that I know how to do the split screen now. I didn't know how to do it at the time, so I think I can get something better up.
Cool. I mean, I've performed a similar experiment based on Samuel Rowbottom's 1838 Bedford level experiment, measuring the curvature across water. And
how did yours come out?
Sorry?
I said, how did it come out? I didn't know you did that experiment.
Yeah, well, it's across a beach, a 7.71 mile stretch across sea, from one beach to another part of the beach, measuring a lighthouse. The height of a lighthouse, and there should have been over that distance 39.6 feet of curvature drop. Yeah, we could see the whole lighthouse. The lighthouse was 95 feet above sea level. The tower was 75 feet, and so you had a building underneath the tower and a bit of rock below it. And you can see all of the lighthouse, the building underneath, and some of the rock base below it. So it kind of like proved that there was no curvature. I mean, this curvature question is a big one, and it's it's a big proof for the flat Earth. When you check out the Bedford level experiment on Wikipedia, that experiment until recently they've changed it, was only debunked by a photo of Earth from space, but they've curiously removed that part, and now they just use the idea of light refraction. I was wondering what do you have to say about people like Red's rhetoric, for instance, who like to use fanciful equations in an attempt to debunk this curvature maths?
Well, I mean, the way I don't really like to go after individual people, but he's a different story. But the guy that I just did the video on, Press Reset Earth, I let him speak through the whole thing. I didn't cherry pick his video. You saw in my video every single word he said. When Red does my videos, he cuts out my parts and then makes claims like, I think at one point I'm saying something about feet to inches, and then I say the number 20 times 20 times 8, and my answer I give in inches. And they all laugh at me and make jokes because he only took the part of me saying the numbers and then the final number. He took out the part where I said the method I was using. So it just, things like that just bother me, because I'm like, man, I mean, if I'm wrong, I don't care if I'm wrong. Tell me. That's what I want. I want to be debunked, because if my goal is to learn the truth, debunk me. But to then just go and lie and make something fake, and now you got your 15 friends all laughing and thinking I'm dumb, it's just kind of upsetting, because it's like, you certainly aren't out for truth. How could you be out for truth? And it just hurts their whole thing, because it even gives me more evidence that it's not real. Why would you go about lying and doing those things? And the language, I mean, I have no problem. I cuss all the time. I say probably the F word 10, 15 times a day. Who knows? But he says it 10 or 15 times a sentence. And it just gets painful. And the thing is, he writes all his stuff out. And it's like, do you actually write the F word on your paper the whole time? I can't even imagine it. I mean, I write a little outline of my videos, but I certainly don't write word for word or have to write the F word into my monologue. So I don't think it's not beneficial to anybody. If he wants to debunk my video, let me speak and then interject and tell me what I did wrong, and let me speak and interject. But just to cherry quote pick and or take one part of my video, and I never said I was perfect. Do I ever start my videos and say, what you're about to see is 100% accurate and perfect? No, it tells you, don't believe me, don't trust me, go out and test these things for yourself. So when you've taken that part out of my video and just put in the part where I say, space is fake, NASA's faking it all, well, yeah, to a bunch of science people, they're going to think I'm a freaking idiot. Of course, that's all he showed is me saying, science, no, the spaceship's not real. And it's not, but you need to watch the whole video to get kind of the idea of what I'm saying. And I never really make claims that are 100% because I don't know. I just can put evidence together and come up with an answer that fits my world. And I've noticed since I've started doing these videos, it seems to meet a lot of people's world. So that's why I've liked doing it, and that's why I think a lot of people have written me and saying, please keep going, please keep doing these. You make it very easy to learn. You explain things clearly. So when I hear that and then I see somebody chop my video up and just quote pick, it's just, I don't think it's helpful. Who is it helpful to? You've now given more reason for these science kids to think they're smart and that flat earthers are dumb. I mean, so you're just hurting the movement. I don't expect him to try and help me, but break it down for real. If I said something that's wrong, break it down and tell me I'm wrong. Not that, I think last video he said I give people cancer. You know, I don't say things like that in my videos. I don't see the reason for it. I'll say a lot of jokes. I say a lot of funny things, but I don't say things like people give people cancer. I just don't see how that's beneficial to my goal.
Yeah, there's a lot of name calling and insults. I mean, and they use like the weakest arguments. I mean, they claim proofs of the top 10 proofs of a sphere. You know, like sticks and shadows, boats over a horizon.
Oh, it's so terrible.
You know, yeah, I mean, the curvature maths has not been debunked since 1838. I mean, if the maths was faulty, that would be an easy debunk of the Bedford level experiment, but they haven't been able to do that, and that's why on Wikipedia they use light refraction as their only example now. You know, their only. And
you don't have to look very far either to find some of these things. Like those things have never been proven, or like I was saying earlier that there is no proof that we go around the sun. You don't have to search very much on the internet to get that information, and the fact that they have no idea of that tells me they've never looked into what they believe. They just repeat what science tells them, even though science just leaves out the part of, well, we've actually never proven that the Earth spins. It's just, it works in our mathematical model, so therefore it's real. It's like, no, that's not how life works. You have to prove the physical, and then the math can prove that. But you can't just make a math equation and say, this math works, so we spin that fast. It's like, no, well, where's the other evidence? You can't just make math equations like that. I mean, you've heard the Einstein quote, right, about mathematics?
Which one?
He says, as far as, I don't want to screw it up, let me see real quick. As far as mathematics refers to reality, it's actually a great speech. He gave it in front of, I forgot what meeting he was at. 1 second. Yeah, anyway, it's as far as mathematics refers to reality, it's not certain. And as far as, okay, I'm going to screw it up, so I'm not going to read them. I'll get it right here.
Another Einstein quote is, blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth. Which is curious.
Yeah, a lot of people give him a hard time, and I think he was definitely used. I'll just say that. And I think he also tried, I don't know if you've seen, there's a lot of pictures of him pointing to his head, and I put that in a couple of my videos and just said, you don't point to the head to say, I'm smart. You point to the head to tell somebody to think. And I think some of these people knew, like, that there was some people that were going to either use them or use their theories to do things that they didn't want done with them. So I think Einstein a lot of times is telling us, it's right in front of you, think. You know? That's how I look at it. So let's see here, it's right here. So it's Einstein Geometry and Experience. If you just look that up, it's not a very long read. It is so good. It's just him explaining what's going to happen when people start using math to prove reality. And it's exactly what happened. Now we've got a mathematical universe that works great. Sure, the numbers work great. Sun 92 million miles. It's not reality. It's just math. So he says here, in my opinion, the answer to this question is briefly this. As far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain. And as far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. And he goes on to talk about axiomatics, and as long as those are handled correctly, then things will go well. Well, what's an axiom is, for instance, like the Earth is spinning. It's an accepted, so then they go and they base math off the axiom. Well, if you haven't proven the axiom, then you can't go further than that in mathematics. How much further have they gone than proving the damn Earth spins? I mean, they've gone into trillions and billions of galaxies, and their axioms aren't right. So you can't then expand on it, and that's all science is. It's been compounded, added to, and now it's a disaster. So.
Right. Yeah, this whole idea of light refraction and superior mirages. I mean, one minute boats disappear over the horizon, and yet city skylines can reappear thousands of feet above the height that they are alleged to be. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's all nonsense. I mean, that's what that Red's rhetoric commented on the first time, and changed the numbers and things. I mean, there's no way. How does, again, it's like gravity to me. In order for gravity to work, it has to have a brain, because it's not a consistent force. Same thing with these mirages, is they never are consistent. They consistently bring up the mirage exactly to the horizon, and the buildings are perfectly straight up and down. I mean, those things are not mirages. I mean, I see mirages at the beach when we're out there. I see mirages down the road, which is a fuzzing of an image, or I've actually seen those Fata Morgana mirages where the boat might get inverted. There's a nice video recently uploaded on YouTube just the other day of a lady that tapes it's like a red bottom boat going way out, and eventually that thing is just broken up into little pixel bits. And, that's just from the sun shining off the water, and you can actually see the waves. They look like they're jumping 30 feet high out there, and it's just all refraction or not refraction, but mirage kind of effects. But then they just use that when it's clearly what we're looking at is nothing like that. Those pictures of Chicago are the skyline. They're not broken up images. They're not wavy and pixely. They're not jumping up and down. They're not inverted. They're not upside down. They're not liquidy. It's the damn buildings. So, and for them just to use that, I try not to ever use any kind of proof that's like stupid. So I don't understand how they say things and feel good about it. It's like the Coriolis effect. It's like, how many times do we have to prove this thing is not a noticeable force? It's not used by sniper rifles. You can't have something, it works on planes, but not on this. I debunk it by simply saying that what they're explaining is not even important when they say, from the southern hemisphere, if you shoot something north, it'll veer to the left, and from the north. But then you just say, well, then switch those. What happens if from the southern I'm shooting from the north to the south? Then it's just doing the exact same thing that the north does. So it's like a big nonsense, math fest, basically thrown together, and then they tell you right out it's a fictitious force. It's not something that even really exists. Sniper rifle people, they don't use it. So it's just things like that I hate that you keep hearing, because we were all taught them, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm so happy that finally I think it's out that the water does not go down the drain different ways in each hemisphere, because that was getting tiresome. But again, I understood it because I heard it in school. I don't remember when or what grade, but that was something I thought and knew was a fact. So when you find out it's not, that's when you start to have to ask questions like, okay, so there's something that they taught us all that told us this means that it's a globe, and then you find out it's a lie. How do you not from that realize, well, why would they make up a lie about a truth? I mean, I don't do that. I don't, if I come home and I wasn't with a girl behind my wife's back or something, I don't then make up a truth or make up a story about being with a girl that I didn't do anything with. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you would never, why would they lie about the truth? They wouldn't. They would lie about something they're trying to hide. So when you've got this, water goes down backwards, and the Foucault pendulum, which they'll never tell you half the time swings the other way, and things like that they're not proofs anymore. And so I don't understand how much longer it's going to take for people to see all these lies. They're all compounded. NASA lies, this lie, Coriolis effect lie, water going down the drain lie. When you start to see that, what are the lies hiding? It's crazy, but at the same time, I told my wife to shut the F up when she told me that the Earth was flat. So I guess it makes sense to me. I was actually talking to a guy that wants to do an intro video for me, and he said, so what do you want to do? Do you want to use the flat Earth map, and I said, no, not so much. I said, if anything, maybe I want to get away from saying the word flat Earth. I said, let's go with, globe destroyer. It's like, maybe that's what I don't want to do, is because I think people hear that and right away turn you off. But if it's, challenging the sphere, something like that, maybe people will not jump to that quick conclusion of, oh, flat earther, you know.
Well, you know, the way that we get around that Jeranism is I use the term Ball Earth Skeptic, and for me that's what it's all about. I'm just being skeptical about the model that they give us, and I like to think that I'm just as skeptical of all the models that are presented. I've got some questions about the flat Earth soon, but we have to move on to the next topic. I know you wanted to briefly touch on something that you noticed in the sky regarding the International Space Station and stars and parallax. Want to give us a brief background on what you've noticed, and then we'll go around the round table and see what others have to say.
Yeah, sure. So the night before last, when we were out there doing the test at 10 o'clock at night, and once we had seen the results, my wife and I were just talking on the phone, and one thing I've had a question about lately is the way that we all see the stars in the sky the same doesn't make a lot of sense. Even when we did the 4-mile test, we were looking at the stars after, and I was trying to grasp in my head. I said, I don't understand how this star that's above me is also above somebody in Canada right now. Being that we're both in the northern, we basically have about the same view of the sky. It's a little bit offset, you know, based on where you're at. But if you're both in the same hemisphere, for the most part, you're almost looking at the same sky. And I just couldn't really grasp that. So we were both, since we were 8 miles apart, I just said, let's watch some of these planes go by. I wanted to get an idea of how offset things were. So the first plane that came by was kind of going through a lower kind of bowl of the Big Dipper from my perspective. And so I said, do you see the plane right now? Do you see that plane with the green light? She said, yeah. I said, okay, where's that at on the Big Dipper? She's like, what? So where's that on the Big Dipper? She goes, it's way over here. And I said, what? I mean, she's talking half the night sky away. And I'm like, is it that, you know, that broken up? But when I started thinking about it, it made sense, because where she's at, the Big Dipper's up above me, but it's not up above me from her view, it's up above her. So when I see it over here, she sees it over there. So that we just really got into that. Like, that's, I mean, if you ever want to have a crazy night, get a friend who's 10 miles away, get on the phone, go outside, and talk about the planes you see going through different stars. You'll be amazed that what you see is what the other person sees, but very differently. It's insane. But you know the plane's real, right? You can't, that can't be a fake thing. You're watching the plane, you can actually see the body of the plane. So then you have to start wondering, well, what are the stars that they displace things that way? So we're watching, another plane goes by, same thing. I was trying to calculate taking the planes at 30,000 feet and trying to see, basically I just had my app and looking at degrees and was just kind of writing some stuff down. And as I'm writing something down, she said, look, there's the ISS. I see the ISS. And that's something that we've looked at the last 2-3 weeks. I got the app that alerts me when it goes outside, and we went outside a couple times and it was too foggy, and then it kind of became a thing like they're hiding the fucking thing from us. And then the next day we go out there and it's gone again. And then we finally saw it. And when you see it, it's actually pretty cool, because I don't think it's the actual ISS. It's a bright dot that moves very quickly and very evenly across the sky, but exactly when they tell you. So we've just been kind of watching that. Well, so now she can recognize it. So she said, I see the ISS. And I said, oh, cool, where's it at? And she said, right there, about to go through the second star of the Big Dipper. And I looked up, and it was right in front of the second star of the Big Dipper. And then I said, where's it now? She said, it just went through the second star. I said, it went through the second star for me. And so then we both kind of were silent on the phone, like, what did we just see? How did every plane we saw be half a sky away, but when we saw the ISS, it passed the exact same spot in the sky for both of us? So to me, that I want to do a little bit more looking into it, but I think that it means that they're both of equal height, meaning either the ISS is a projection, or it could even be, if there is a dome, perhaps it's magnetically moving across the dome sky, which would be the exact same height as the stars if they're also on the dome. These are things we still have to look at. I don't like to, say that because I don't know. I've never seen a dome. I've never seen a star.
Well, Jeranism, just quickly on that one then, can you tell us, do you know the distance, sorry to make you repeat yourself, the distance between yourself and your wife when you both saw the objects pass the same star?
8 miles.
8 miles. Because the thing is, we can do some pretty basic mathematics to see what it is that you should see on the official model, and then if that fits in with what you saw. we'll go around the roundtable on this one, then we'll move on quickly. Matrix, any points you want to make on this issue of the International Space Station and the apparent lack of parallax?
Yeah, well, I've viewed the International Space Station go across the sky here, and to me, it doesn't seem to be travelling at 17,500 miles per hour. It appears to be more something similar to an aeroplane. So I mean, if I was to speculate about it, I would say it could be some kind of technology, whether it's some kind of drone or a projection or something like that. So I concur with Jeranism on this. To me, the ISS space station is not really there, and it's interesting to hear his idea on parallax and what he's seeing.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about that, though, is that because I agree, it doesn't look like it's going very fast, but now seeing it cross that same spot for both of us tells me it's obviously much higher than planes, because the planes are displaced quite a bit because they're much, much lower. So that could mean that if it's that much higher, is it actually going that much faster? I mean, it wouldn't even be lit like that on a globe Earth. I mean, how could it be? It's like a solid light. Is that how you saw it? Like a solid, bright. It's not bright as a star. But it's solid and consistent, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems to flicker a bit when I filmed it. I mean, I couldn't get a good zoom on it like I've seen some of the amateur astronomers do with telescopes. But even their photographs, it appears to be very blurry, and it's not sharp image at all, which leads me to believe it's some kind of, possibly a projection or something.
I would think that too.
I mean, the relative height, 150 miles to 250 miles up, can account for that parallax that you're seeing, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to see the. Certainly not a math specialist, but I would like to see what kind of math would come out of that, because, yeah, I mean, we both saw it go directly through that same star. I wish that there was somebody else 50 miles away to know if they saw the same thing as well,
Yes, I mean, you're suggesting that it's much higher than 150 miles even.
No. Am I?
No,
I don't know.
Sure.
I was saying that the planes, which we know are, between, let's say, 20 and 35,000 feet, those all were displaced pretty much in proportion to their height. Meaning, if the one 30,000 feet, if I saw another plane, I could then predict where my wife would see it based on its height. Just by eyeballing it, you could look and say, okay, if that one's here, well, it's half the sky away. I bet you see it over there. Yep, I see it over there. So we kind of gotten this little system down where, and then the lower planes, they're displaced, much less. If I see a lower plane out over the ocean, well, she's going to see it out over the ocean too, right? Not in the same star, maybe, but they wouldn't be a half a night away or half a sky away. So we were kind of just playing with that. But then to see the ISS pass, well, that just tells me it's much higher than 35,000 feet. But I would never even say 100 miles. That seems outrageous to me. But I was just saying that it's definitely higher up than planes, or else it would have the same displacement.
Okay, that's the point you're making. That's the only point you're making, that you think it's higher than planes.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing me personally, I think that it would have to be equal to. I mean, I don't think. Myself, I know stars, or I don't think stars are suns. I don't think stars are millions of miles away, let alone trillions. I do kind of, when I see it, I do see some sort of dome, either a projection dome. I'm not saying it's a glass thing or it's a plastic thing. I'm just saying that the night sky can move over us like a dome, and it appeared to me, if both of us saw that ISS pass at the exact same star, I think it's the exact same height as that star. So it could mean that otherwise it would have been slightly off. Meaning, if it was much higher than the ISS, well then she would have seen it 2 inches or slightly below the second star, whereas I would see it above or whatever. But we saw both of it go through that star. That was pretty incredible for us to see. The ISS is pretty tiny, that second star is pretty tiny, and we both saw it go into that star. or past it, not into it.
So you're suggesting that the ISS and the stars are at a similar height?
I would after what I saw, yeah, I would say they're either on the same dome, they're on the same projection. Yeah, there's no other way you could describe it if you're talking about parallax. If it's any different, then they would have to be displaced, right? I mean, if you're standing on one side of the street and somebody else is standing on the other side, no matter what you look at, it's displaced between you two, unless they're at the same distance. Then they could appear to you both as the same. I don't know. Maybe I'm not describing that right.
So hang on a second. So the parallax, for the few people that don't know what that is, if you're in a train or in a car, the trees right next to you are whizzing by, but the trees on the mountain in the distance don't look like they're moving. So that's the effect we're talking about. And a plane is obviously, according to the official story, much lower than the space station. But when you're comparing a plane to, from 8 miles apart and the stars, you're going to see a world of difference, which makes sense. But if the stars are really trillions of miles away, then the difference between where a plane flies 30, 40,000 feet and the space station 200 miles or whatever it is, isn't going to make a noticeable difference in the parallax effect because the stars are so far away. So to me, this is really good evidence that
I think so too.
That the stars are much closer, space station or whatever it is, that they're very close in the height. Whether they're real, whether they're projections, this is all speculation, but the observation of where they are doesn't make any sense with the official story.
And what I wanted to tell people in this thing, I'm like, go do this, because this is something that's free, it's fun, it's easy. Go get the app so it tells you when the ISS is passing, and go outside. It actually tells you about 15 or 20 minutes early. So it's something where you could get the alert, go out and call a friend, and just start looking at stars, and planes that are out. You may only see 1 or 2 or 3 in the time that you're waiting for it, but it would give you an idea by just saying, where do you see this plane? Do you see that plane with a green light? Okay, where do you see it? Oh, it's out. And if you know where the other person is, you have to have a good visual of where they're actually at, because then you can picture it and say, wow, you really see that to the right where it's to my left. And it just gives you a different perspective that the night sky is like it's like a TV screen for everyone. I don't know how else to explain it. But then when you see the ISS fly, you'll both see it in the exact same spot of the sky and past the exact same spot of the star. And that should, like you said, that's really big proof that you can draw your own conclusion from. They say the stars are so far away that when we take that crazy journey through the universe of 400 trillion miles or whatever, 400 billion miles throughout a year, when we start over the next year, the stars are in the same spot. They didn't move. So that should tell everybody, well, no, they just say, well, they're so far away that even though we ended up 400 trillion miles, 400 billion miles away, they just happen to be in the same spot. Well, for anything to be that far, how could the ISS have passed that location from both of our eyesights? It wouldn't even have been, it would have been half the night sky away. It wouldn't make a difference between how far it is. Think of the difference between 200 miles and 35,000 feet, so that's 7 miles. That's nothing. 207 miles, when you're talking about 25 trillion miles is the closest star. So it's outrageous, that the numbers that they throw at us. That's what's going to end up hurting them.
Fair enough. Well, that is something, like you said, Jeranism, that people can look into for themselves, and obviously you always encourage people to do their own research. You say, open your mind, there's truth inside, and I think because none of us can claim to know everything about the world, or in fact most of us are starting to realize we know very little, the best thing people can do is their own research, their own experiments, and come to their own conclusions. We need to move on to the next topic, though. Just quickly, I know that David really wants to talk about Pluto and the passage by the so-called New Horizon. We'll keep this topic brief. Do you have any thoughts on the so-called passage of Pluto by New Horizon that took place in the last 24 hours? And then we'll go around the round table.
Who's it on, me?
Yeah, mate, that's right.
No, I think it's hilarious. I think the whole picture is is funny. I did see, I think I put it in my video about a week and a half ago, that they showed as it was getting close. They said, well, this is how close we can see it now. And it's like a gray blur. And then now we see the picture yesterday. It looks like I kind of want to eat it. It looks like a peanut butter chocolate ball. But it's just perfectly sphere. Like you said, it's supposed to have moons, and there's no moons. Where's the stars? It's the same thing all the time. I mean, how this thing can line up a planet. How far away is Pluto? We know offhand? I don't even know. But you can line that thing up so perfectly. Take 11 years to get there, but they still can't take a picture of the Earth. It's like, that's what bothers me most of all, is this NASA could just easily prove everything tomorrow, could shut every flat earther up tomorrow by just sending a rover to the moon to prove everything. Here's our landing spots, here's our flags, here's our tools, there's your Earth spinning in the sky, now shut up. That's all they have to do. I couldn't make another video. I'd have to go into hiding. But they'll never do that because they can't. So it's like, it's just really obvious to me. I mean, how do you let somebody talk about you like people talk about NASA? How would you let somebody talk about it? If you're a scientific industry or scientific organization, how would you let people slander your name every single day? The moon hoaxes, all they have to do is send a little rover to the moon to show us. What do they do instead? Oh, we'll send an orbiter that will get just close enough that you'll be able to see a little pixel change, and we'll call that proof. And then we're going to send our rover to Mars, where you can't say anything about it because you've never been there and won't be able to tell that we're faking it. It's just everything they do is so obviously deceptive. They could prove things so easily. It's like I wanted to write them a letter this year and say, look at these questions everybody has about the stupid eclipse. Everybody's got the questions. Why don't we have a camera on the moon during an eclipse? The answer's right there. It's like, it's our tax money. We're the ones paying. How do they not do what we want to do? It's like nope, we do our own thing here. We need to go look at Pluto. That's what's important. So yeah, that's going to be real important.
Well, Jeranism, Matrix and I were talking about this on our impromptu chat last night, and the supposed distance between Earth and Pluto is meant to be more than 4 billion miles. More than 4 billion miles. And in the live chat, one of the commenters, I apologize, I've misplaced his name, one of the commenters makes the point that we have this Hubble telescope that can supposedly see galaxies billions or trillions of miles away in crystal clear detail, but we can't even get a decent photo of Pluto. I mean, it boggles the mind that anyone who looks into this can believe it. And a lot of people, and this includes me up until relatively recently, we've never really looked into the official story of all of this, so we don't know just how absurd it is. But once you start looking into the official story, if it was coming from anybody but NASA, you'd say it was not just silly, but absurdly silly. Just why would you even say such nonsense? But because it comes from NASA, well, it must be true. And if you doubt it, you're crazy. Dave, I know this was a topic that you wanted to talk about. We don't have much time. Any thoughts on the New Horizon passage of Pluto?
It's just that John, you got to move. It's just that when we get there, all of a sudden we have a perfect spheroid picture of Pluto, perfectly lit, which means the sun is directly behind the spaceship, and supposedly the probe was passing Pluto. Where's the crescent Pluto, the half Pluto? Where are the 7 moons? They all happen to be behind Pluto on the day this crystal clear picture was taken. Pluto is rotating, the spaceship's moving, and the light is very dim out there. Why did it black out all the stars? How did they get a clear, stationary, sharp picture of Pluto? My last thought is, just Google Pluto photos and click images, and it's like 150 different artist renderings, which are supposedly pictures of Pluto. It's unbelievable. We used to have pictures of Pluto, and it was very lumpy. Now it's a perfect sphere. It's out of control. It's ridiculous.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're just joining us late, you're listening to the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable, episode 6. We've got with us as our special guest Jeranism, who has been putting in a lot of work lately trying to debunk the spinning ball model, and he does it with a nice sense of humour. We're glad to have him on board. We're into the general discussion section now, the last half hour, and I've got a few questions for you, Jeranism, and then we'll go around the table. Firstly, do you buy into the notion that flight paths can prove the flat Earth?
No. You mean as far as like how long it takes to get between A and B, or?
Well, there are some people out there, Jeranism, and they're claiming that the flight paths between, say, Johannesburg and Perth, or between Sydney and South America, they either don't exist, or they exist but they're dummy flights, or they're not dummy flights, they're real, but they have secret refueling stops or something like this. And the claim goes that if you use the azimuth or equidistant map or one of the prominent flat Earth maps, that the distance between the countries in the southern hemisphere are too great, which is why there has to be this tomfoolery, and so on and so forth. So is this something that you buy into?
Yeah, I do think it does tell you that there's deception. I wouldn't say that they prove a flat Earth, but it does prove clear deception. There's no other reason why you would need to do that, or some of the angles that they take, or I mean, it's outrageous that they say they can't fly over the South Pole. That's outrageous. When have we seen temperature on the ground or affect a plane at that height? I just don't think that those things are legit. They obviously are doing something wrong, and they're hiding it. And I think a lot of it has to do with that southern hemisphere is twice as big as the globe says. There's a couple reports of people at that 40-degree latitude mark that say that it's twice the distance from in the southern hemisphere as the northern. That ship, the British ship Challenger, and those guys all sailed way too many miles. Captain Cook, 60,000 miles in his second journey. He was trying to go around Antarctica, and then he gets to the end and says he never did it. And yet, if you go to the IOO, the International Oceanic Organization, they say he was the first one to circumnavigate Antarctica. It's a complete lie. He says in his own journal, I sailed and we kept seeing this ice wall, and there's nobody who could ever go lower than I did, but he was just going the other way.
All right then, Jeranism, I've got this. My position is that it's worth debunking any bad arguments, no matter who's making them, flat Earth, a ball Earth, a concave Earth, whatever. There are people out there who are claiming that you can't fly from, say, Sydney to Chile. That's proof of a flat Earth, and I think they're putting out disinfo. So I think it'd be worth someone like one of us taking that flight, recording it, staying up all night to prove, staying up awake on the flight to prove there are no hidden stops when everyone's asleep, so we can get people to stop spreading, if it turns out to be false, if this is disinfo, so we can get flat earthers, or whoever they are, to stop spreading the disinfo. Do you think it would be worth doing that, debunking this flight paths prove the flat earth argument?
So I guess I'm confused. So you're saying that on the globe it would be only a certain distance, but on a flat Earth it would be too long to take the flight?
Well, yes, so there are people out there, and I'm not sure if Mark Sargent is one of them, but I think one of our panel members, as we speak, might be one of them. They're saying that flight paths prove the flat Earth. They're saying that the flights between, say, Sydney and Chile either don't exist or they involve a mystery stop because the distance is too great on the flat Earth map. And I'm not so sure that's true. In fact, I want to take a flight from Sydney to Chile to see if it is the time that they tell us it is, to see if there are no emergency stops, so that we can once and for all stop people, flat earthers or otherwise, pushing this notion that the flights don't exist, if indeed they do exist.
Yeah, I actually think that would be really beneficial, because I don't think planes ever get low on running out of fuel. They must have a reserve tank of a quarter at least, I would think, in case of emergency or in case they need to circle. Or so I can't picture them saying, I mean, how much difference are we talking? Is the panel member who believes that, are we talking 15-hour flight to 12, or what is the difference?
Well, let's throw it to Dave Weiss. David, are you still of the belief that the flight paths prove a flat Earth?
I believe that it's going to show something. Assuming that the flat Earth map is correct, and we have no proof of that. On a globe model, flying from Chile to New Zealand or Australia should be about a 12-hour flight, maybe even a 10-hour flight if you went across the southern hemisphere. But the flight paths that were shown go, all the way up to London, the Middle East, and down, which is a straight line on a flat Earth map. So if it's 10 or 12 hours and it takes 17 hours, that's going to show us something,
Absolutely. Okay, good point.
You can argue wind speeds. You can argue, flight speeds. It's from 12 hours to 17 hours. That's a big difference. That's another 5 hours. You can go quite a distance in 5 hours. You know, if you're flying 550 miles an hour, that's a big difference. So I'm all for it.
I say go.
Excellent. Well, I'll keep listeners updated if I ever do start a GoFundMe to fund the trip to South America. Once upon a time, that was the plan, but at the moment, I'm just going a little bit cold on that plan for the time being. But if that changes, I'll let people know. Now, the next question that I had for you, Jeranism, was to do with your videos. Now, ever since I started making YouTube videos, I've been trying to encourage other people to do the same thing, because I think the more of us making videos, the more of us putting ideas out there, the more collaboration there'll be, the better for everyone. And I noticed it with some of your videos, especially the early ones, they looked very well made. And I know that it takes me a long time to make even short videos. How much time and effort are you putting into some of these videos that seem really well done?
Way too much. A lot. I mean, I never had made one before. I think the very first video I made, I used Windows Movie Maker. And then it was about a week after I was at the Goodwill, and saw Pinnacle Studio 12. I didn't know if it was good or not. I looked at it. It looked like a decent movie maker. It looked better than Windows Movie Maker. So I bought it. It was like $3 or $4. And I started using that. It was good, except for once I tried to render the video. And a lot of my earlier videos were like an hour long. And it would take 3 or 4 hours till the video was ready to go to YouTube. It was a nightmare. I didn't know if everybody was dealing with that. I didn't know if I had the settings right. So that was kind of a problem. I mean, I definitely spent some time on some videos that didn't come out right, and then had to re-upload them, or whatever you call it, re-render them. So I had some issues at the beginning, and then once I learned how to use it, yeah, people who said I was a shill at the beginning, damn, I said that word. People who said that I were saying that my videos were too good, and I was like, how, you can't fault somebody for getting better. I'm glad that I was getting better, but they took that as I was a shill. I said, look at my video. You can go through each one, and if you find one that was made after another one and it's worse, then I was lazy, because you do get better with each one. You kind of can get your structure better. You can your transitions, but I think it's fun to put it together. I never had made a movie before. I still don't know how they make the great cinematic kind of, like a trailer. I don't know how to do those, but there's a couple of good points in my videos where I've done some things that have said, oh, I got to do that again. There was one where I actually wrote out the speed thing, 1,000 miles per hour, and wrote it out and set it very fast to like a fast beat. And that was just, it was fun for me. It was a good part of the video that kind of showed how crazy that whole thing is. You're going 1,000 miles per hour. You're going 66,000 miles per hour around the sun in an orbit of 584,000. It was just kind of fun. It was like, that's what I enjoy doing, and it does take time, because you have to plan that out. You've got to have the right music speed. You've got to have the right graphic in the background. I do a lot of graphics. I think they're easy for people to understand. My wife wants to, she's having trouble with the stars, which I think is a huge proof. But she's just it's so hard to grasp what would you see on a globe from each person's perspective of the stars as we spun. So she wants to go and get something like a big beach ball, or even bigger, and hang it from our garage, and then kind of put up some kind of makeshift stars, and then actually get like a little video camera. They have for $10 you can get a little USB video camera. It won't be good quality, but all you need to do is put that on that ball and put one light source and spin it, and just start. I mean, that's how you get an idea, because if you go to Google Earth, if you go to all these different planetarium sites, they won't let you do that. You try and move the Earth, well, the stars move with it. So it's really hard to get a good view of what we would actually see, and I know why that is. It's because it will be absolutely completely different than what we do see.
Sorry, man, I was just on mute there. No, thanks for the answer. So just quickly, I went back through some of your videos. Obviously, you were coming on as a guest, so I need to go back and check through your stuff. I saw one of the earliest videos you made was called The Greatest Hoax Ever Sold. That was back in the middle of February. And you mentioned that you had a book coming soon. Now, I'm sorry if you've addressed this elsewhere, but did you get around to finishing that book, and can we look forward to it soon if it hasn't already been released?
No, actually, that was the plan when I started the whole thing, was that we were going to write a book. At the time, I thought that I was going to be the only. This is kind of what I said. I wasn't going to do videos. It was kind of like, well, I don't want to be the only one doing videos, but I would write a book. if we could write a book, but that was all. We hadn't even done like any kind of funding for, self-publishing a book. I think we looked into it. It was like $5,000 just to get, a couple hundred copies. So it was something that was kicking around, and I think I made that video, the one you're talking about. I think I made it on like an iPhone app. It's not a video I made like on the computer with a movie maker. It was like put a couple screenshots in a movie app thing on your iPhone, and then that was just kind of us talking about a book. But then it led into the Mark thing, and once he was doing the videos, then I said, yeah, you know what, I'm okay just speaking it. At the time, I remember thinking I had the secret of all secrets. I mean, and that was barely, I wonder when that video came. Oh, it must have been February. I thought I had the secret of all secrets. I did not think it would blow up like this. It's absolutely unbelievable, but awesome, because it's the truth, and so it needs to get out there and needs to be heard. But at the time, like I said, I was scared to do it. I said, no, people will just think I've gone off the deep end. But then, I mean, all we had to do is put a couple videos out, and all somebody needs to do is take a day and just ponder it, really think about it. You can't just pass us off as idiots and move on. It doesn't make any sense. You're the same thing that they all got mad at the popes for doing is the same thing that they turn and do, and they don't see it. They all talk about, oh, the popes were so evil because they wouldn't listen to Galileo because his idea. It's like, what is different here? You're just saying you already know the truth and we're idiots, and that's what the church was saying. They wouldn't want to listen to anybody else. Nope, we already know it. Get out of here. You can't take your proofs elsewhere. And it's the same thing. They're doing the same thing. Look at peer review. Science peer review is the same exact thing as the popes all getting together and saying, do we accept Galileo's thing? No. Okay, tell him he's Inquisition. He's got to go to his house and be grounded. That's the exact same thing. Is the scientists all getting together? Do we accept this paper? Well, no. We all believe in relativity. Okay, well, pass it. They don't look for truth.
All right, then. Well, one final question from me, and then we'll go around the round table. We've got more than 70 people watching live. I appreciate you all coming out. Last question from me, and then we'll go around. The question is, if you had to try and make the case for the spinning ball, based on the fact that you've done a lot more research into spinning ball than most spinning ball earthers have, if you were on a debating team and one day you draw the short straw and your team was arguing for the ball earth, what would be some of the best arguments that you would try and put forward to convince the audience? Are there any arguments that you think at all can be used to support the ball?
Man, right now it'd only be the boats going over the horizon in the ocean, because I was a big believer in the fact that you could zoom in on that boat, and you can. If you lose it out of your view, you can zoom in and catch it again. But now if you keep watching it from that point, it does hit a point where it appears the bottom melts in. Now, like I said, I explain that by the water's going up from my feet to my eye level. And I think that there's other, the mirage bits of water where it looks like it's all choppy waves out there, but it's not. It's just a mirage. And so for me, that's, if I was going to argue it, I think that's their only argument that even makes sense, and that's why it's their go-to. I mean, what else do they bring up? And the reason why is because that one can never really be proven. I was even telling my wife the other night, I'm not even sure that the people in the early days or 1500s or 1600s knew that what they were doing was wrong. I think that the evidence that they saw led them to believe it was a ball Earth. I think that when they saw boats go over, it's not like they knew what was really happening and masked it. Now, granted, as time went on, somebody might have caught on and said, whoops, we got to hide this, we screwed up. But I don't think in the beginning, I think that they really thought the boats showed them clearly. You look at any old book, right? That's what they all go to, is why do we see the sail first? Why do we see the sail disappear last? So, but I don't think there's any other evidence that, I certainly wouldn't use gravity anymore. I wouldn't use, there's nothing else that makes sense. That one's the only one that I've been trying to really get at myself, because there's something going on there that's weird.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I should say, for the record, I'm not far off uploading a video that I've taken where I found what I think looks like light on the bottom of clouds, which I don't think fits in with the flat Earth model. Eric gave me an answer on last week's show, and I'm still trying to get my head around the answer. Sometimes it takes a while to get your head around the flat Earth model, so I'm not rejecting his answer straight away. I'm still trying to get my head around it. But I do like to ask flat earthers, if you had to make the case for the ball, what kind of case would you make? And I think most flat earthers could make a better case for the ball model than spinning ball model believers could, because most people who believe in the spinning ball have never actually looked at it objectively, which is why they give you nonsense answers like water going down the drain the wrong way, or sticks and shadows, or Coriolis, or all of these terrible
Or
arguments.
they'll even say it's daytime over here, and daytime over here in San Francisco. How is it nighttime over there then? You know, it's like they still go back to these little ones. Like, can you at least watch one of my videos before you make a comment on them?
Exactly, the most devout spinning ball. The people who are hopelessly devoted to the spinning ball, and they generally can't make a very good case for it. I reckon I can make a better case for it than they can. We have to go around the round table. Matrix, you've been very patient, so it's general discussion time, mate. Any questions for Jeranism or any points you want to make?
Yeah, okay. I think, you know, regarding the boats over the horizon, I think it's an issue due to the horizon and limitations of vision and vanishing point and dynamics of perspective. And I've seen various videos on this. I think I've got a couple of other points that come up earlier. Regarding Pluto, it's allegedly 1,466 miles in diameter, and it's 4.6 billion miles away, which is a very small size and a long way away. And I wonder how they, you know, it was discovered in 1930, and I wonder how they did it back then. Regarding the planes thing, planes fly level with the horizon and don't change altitude every minute to account for the curvature. That's just a couple of points I just wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
You know, slight changing the subject here. I mean, I've been filming the moon phases since the full moon for the last 10 days or so, since the beginning of July, and I'm seeing anomalies regarding which parts are illuminated, you know, during the phases. And I also wonder how I can get a clear and in focus photo of the moon. I mean, we had my perspective on a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying how we can't really see that far. You know, there's limitations to our eyesight, and you know, for the moon to be 240,000 miles away, we shouldn't be able to see it. You know, one of your earlier videos is about moon phases, so I was wondering if you could elaborate on those.
Yeah, well, same thing with me. I've been really looking into the moon probably the last 2 cycles, and just watching. We took some good pictures of it as well. Yeah, obviously by just zooming in on it and looking at the detail that you can see, tells you the distance that they give is off. You just said 240. I watched a video yesterday. If you go to the Apollo 11 takeoff, or the Apollo 11 launch, and it says, as it was seen on ABC, I think is what the title is. The announcer says they're on their journey, you know, they're about to leave for the moon, 218,000 miles away. And this is the kind of thing that I'm sure the NASA kids will just pass off as, oh, he made a mistake. But he actually says a number, 218,036 or something. So how did the moon, you know, move 25,000? And I even looked it up to see. I know it does move according to them, kind of wavers back and forth. But I think the minimum they say is like 227 to 243 or something like that. So how was it 218 and 69? Those are the kind of things that just tell me that they don't know. They tell one of their proofs of the moon landings is the lasers being shot by the Apollo station that shoots the moon lasers that was on the show Mythbusters. But if you look up, I think it's May 9th, 1961 or 1962, that was the first time ever that they shot a laser off the moon and it returned to Earth. So 7 years before we even went there. So obviously you can return a laser from the moon without mirrors there. So how then they just go around and claim that as their proof? Those are the kind of things I'm talking about. That's a lie, because you've already done it without the mirrors. So then to go to that and say that's your proof, it's clear deception.
Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on the phases of the moon and what we can see from it?
Yeah, I don't think it works either, because my big thing is I can't grasp the idea of we wouldn't be able to see a new moon when it's supposedly got its backside showing, well, you know, the sun is behind it and lighting the side we can't see. I still think that there would be a dark spot in the sky, especially during eclipses. And I actually got sick of watching those, because every single eclipse on YouTube is doctored, it's cut up, it's edited, they all look different. But when that moon comes and gets in front of the sun, you never see it till it first gets its first little black edge over the sun. They all will show the thing going, and then all the light will go out, and then all of a sudden all the light illuminates, and all those things. I mean, if you watch them, I guarantee you, pick out five eclipse videos after this call, watch all 5 of them, you will see that they're either cut, they're edited, they're those weird colors. Sometimes you'll see that orange disc, like that's not what the sun looks like. So everything is, and I don't know enough about them to say they're being faked or they're being hidden. Or somebody wrote me an email yesterday that said during the eclipse they're changing the light of the sun, changing the bulb. I just responded, thanks. Now I got to look into that. But I was, hey, why not? They're doing something up there. So maybe that's when the sun needs to have its light changed out.
Right. What do you think about you're saying the solar eclipse is a result of the moon moving in front of the sun? But what do you think about Eric DeBay's idea that it's Rahu or the black sun, and the possibility of that?
Well, where is it 10 minutes before it goes in front of the sun? Is it like invisible? Is that what he thinks? I don't even know what his thought is on that.
Okay, it's just something that Eric DeBay talks about, and it's an interesting hypothesis regarding whether it is the moon actually causing the solar eclipse or not.
Yeah, and see, that's something those are the kind of things where I wish everybody was out there. Just there's so many things you could test. I feel like if somebody just concentrated on that for one cycle, just by tracking the moon, you should be able to know exactly where it is throughout the day and know exactly if that is the moon that's going in front of the sun. Something I haven't done yet. It is on that planetarium site that I use. You can see the moon coming around, and that's what I think causes the eclipse, but I haven't looked into it enough to say one way or the other. But I don't know about any black sun or things like that unless he's saying it's invisible, because where is it 10 minutes before the eclipse?
Yeah, there's also the idea that you can see through the sun. I mean, the photos I've been taking of the sun in the day sky, it appears to be semi-transparent, and I'm not sure whether that's a lighting effect or not.
You mean the moon?
Yeah. I mean, when you
I think you can see through it. Yeah, we've taken pictures.
During the day,
yeah.
When you photograph the moon during the day, you can see it blends in with the blue sky.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got some movies. Actually, I'm going to load some today of crazy things we've seen with the sun and moon. Definitely there's one we have of the moon that looks like it's got some, the lunar wave that Crow recorded. We have something kind of similar, but happening like multiple times. It certainly can't be our camera because I've never seen it before, but it does look like it changes from what we've watched. It's not correct in its tilt where it should be based on what they tell us and where the sun is, and it's really kind of hard to grasp sometimes, because I don't think, and whoever it was that said that the phases don't match, we've been seeing the same thing, that it's certainly not following any kind of pattern that makes any sense. I don't think that the light from the moon is from the sun. I don't know if a lot of people will agree with me on that, or if I'm kind of alone in my thought on that, but I did do the test with a thermometer and a magnifying glass, and I sat outside for 10-15 minutes and put the moonlight right on that magnifying glass, and it didn't budge. I'm sorry, put the magnifying light of the moon onto the thermometer, and it never went up. So it just tells me they can't be sunlight. They have different properties. They do different things. One dries and the other one putrefies, and one's damp and one's it's a different kind of light. It's a different kind of heat. The moonlight's cold. It's you can feel the chill. It's certainly not warm. Or even they say, I think they say it reflects 14%. I think that's the number they say. Even that, you should be able to feel the heat of 14%. If that's what's being reflected to the Earth is 14% of the sun's light, how would you not feel that as warm? How could I take a magnifying glass for 10 minutes to a thermometer and it not budge? So it is weird, because it certainly makes sense the way they describe it. So that's why you're like, well, no, it makes sense. That's the way it works because what we can see. But if it doesn't meet the other bits of reality that we see, then you got to toss it out.
Cool. I mean, Dave, allegedly Dave, or deep inside the rabbit hole. You got a question?
I've got a couple questions. Dave, I'll let you jump in right after me. I'll go real quick. The moon phases, we're told that the moon is just far enough away from the Earth that the gravity won't pull it in, but the gravity of the moon is strong enough to pull on the tides, but the greater gravity of the Earth isn't strong enough to pull the moon in, whatever. The sun has well, whatever is the best explanation.
That's a good explanation.
The phenomenal gravity is even stronger, holding the Earth, holding everything. How come when the moon is going away from the sun around the Earth, the sun isn't slowing it down, and when it comes around the other side, going back towards the sun, it doesn't speed up, because all of this gravity reacting. I don't want to say belief, my suspicion, I'm leaning towards the idea that the moon, I believe in the electric universe. I'm studying it, learning more about it. It makes a lot more sense than the global Ball Earth theories, and that the electromagnetic force of the moon pulls on the tides. And, if you do the experiment, if you put your faucet on a light stream and you get a balloon and rub it on your hair, get it real static, you put it next to that stream's going to bank a left on the way down. It's going to wrap around the balloon without ever touching it, just from the tug of the electromagnetics.
That's perfect, because what we saw last night, when you right now said it pulls on it, I was like, I don't think it pulls. What we saw last night, when both the moon and the sun set away from me all the way to the side, that's when we got the tide that came back in and ate the phone. So I think it pushes.
Well,
right?
Push or pull, some electromagnetic force, and I don't know what it is. It just makes more sense than gravity. So the question is, when the phases of the moon, and this is what leads me to lean towards the moon being its own light, not reflecting sunlight for a host of reasons, is when we have a full moon, we have extra high and extra low tides, depending on where the moon is, of course. Why is that? The moon's still there. It's just lit up by the sun from the side or behind. What difference does it make? And wouldn't a new moon, with the sun and the moon lined up from our point of view, make a massive tide? And when it doesn't, it's the full moon that makes the biggest tide, where you have the sun on the opposite side of the Earth. It should kind of equal out or negate some of those magical gravitational forces. It doesn't make any sense. So when you have a quarter moon, a half moon, a crescent moon, that's a lower tidal force. And when you power up the moon full capacity, full moon, you have these massive tides. It really makes a lot more sense than anything else.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that, and I've been to the beach 100 times and I just never paid attention, but in the last 3 or 4 times, yesterday was by far the biggest tide I've ever seen. And aren't we close to new moon? So, because the moon and the sun were very near each other, they both set around the same time. So I'm wondering why that was the biggest tide I've ever seen.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because the sun, if it's gravity that's pulling on the tides, why wouldn't the sun's gravity pull on the tide also? But
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the sun, my understanding is that it is an electric infinite energy source of some sort. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't even know if it's a physical object, but that's pulling on the tides also. So when you have the sun and the moon together, you could have some high tides. There's a lot to it. The whole gravitational thing doesn't make any sense. And then getting back to the eclipses, the reason, what are we told about eclipses? What's the one thing we're all told about a solar eclipse? Don't look at it.
Right.
Don't look at it. That's what we're indoctrinated. Don't look at it. Whatever you do, don't look at it. Don't put a camera at it. Don't point a telescope at it. You'll burn your eyeballs out. You'll be blind forever. Right? So don't look at it, and you can see. look at it
Yep.
and you'll be blind. The opposite is true.
Right.
The truth. I'm sure you can, put a telescope in your eye and hurt your eye with a lot of light.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Getting just back to John's question, don't you think the best argument for a ball Earth is, you're a moron for thinking it's flat, you're an idiot, science proves it.
Right. Oh,
There
yeah,
you go.
That's
The best argument. That's the best argument. All right, John, go ahead. Or Dave. Dave, you're up.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to make a couple of comments about the moon before asking a question. Looking into the moon and this idea that it's self-luminous, I found a 19th century physicist called Macedonio Melloni in 1846, and I'm going to quote from his book here. It says that it is well known that visible light from the moon is a result of reflected sunlight, but careful measurements with a telescope showed that the moon radiates energy in the infrared, which is quite different from reflected light from the sun. In fact, this infrared radiation is not reflected sunlight, but light emitted by the moon itself. So back in the 1800s, they knew that the moon was emitting light, not reflecting it, which is very interesting. And also, talking about the moon and gravity, while you guys were talking, I just had an idea, and I've just been searching on YouTube to figure out the numbers. But the moon is supposed to be moving away from us at 1.48 inches per year. And it was apparently formed 4.5 billion years ago. So that means, and I worked this out, in that time it's moved 66.6 billion inches, funnily enough. So that works out to be just over 100,000 miles, 105,000 miles. So for millions of years, the moon was 100,000 miles closer. So how does gravity work? If shouldn't the mutual attraction at that distance have pulled the moon into the Earth? I mean, gravity doesn't make sense when you actually look at it really, really closely. So there were just two comments I had. The question I wanted to ask Jeranism is, this whole idea of flat Earth for me has been a complete revelation. It's changed the way I look at my life. How has it affected you? How has this knowledge affected you?
Oh, I think it's immeasurable, really. Like I said, I was at a place where we were fed up. It felt like everything, and not that everything's not a lie, it still is, but we just felt everything was a lie, and it was a lost cause. I mean, look what science does. Look what evolution does. Look what this endless universe and vast millions and billions of suns and planets. It just really kind of gets you in that who cares mode. It's kind of it's neither here nor there. It just kind of gives you that ho-hum kind of attitude. And why do I have to be nice to somebody on the street? Who cares? And you can change that real quick. And now all of a sudden it's just, we were talking about it on the ride back last night. You just are a happier person. I love the idea of I don't have to believe anybody anymore. I felt like you had to believe what you were taught in science. You had to believe what you were taught in school. You had to believe what your preacher taught you. And to tell all those guys to stick it feels good, because all you got to do is prove it to me. Proof is self-evident. And if they can't, then I'm going to go off what I feel is the best evidence.
Yeah, that idea, the ho-hum idea, I mean, in my video I was going to end it with the Galaxy song from Monty Python. I don't know if you've seen that, but at the end of Monty Python, I think it's well, at the end of that film, they're trying to convince this woman to give up her liver or something, and she says, "Well, no, I need it." And they say, "Well, watch this," and that song basically says, "Well, no, you're insignificant. Insignificant doesn't mean anything." And at the end, she goes, "Well, okay, then take it." So that's the kind of mentality, this kind of idea is promoted.
It's crazy.
You evolve. yeah, you've evolved for nothing. You know, your life's meaningless, and you know, you're insignificant.
To show this is a deception, I always ask people, how many atheists do you think there were in the year 3000 BC, 1000 BC, 500 AD, 1000 AD? There was zero. There's no way you could have been on this earth and not assumed a creator or a reason until 1600, when science came with their telescopes and their new wonderful spinning ball, and then it all kind of was like, oh, I guess we were wrong. And I mean, I know it because I was one who fell for it, who just said religion's wrong. Oh, I guess science is right. I got to go be an atheist, and I got to go be in science. And luckily, I went through it and saw there's no truth there. It's all conjecture. It's all make believe. It's and it's just people who stand up, just like the priest who would stand up and tell me things are true. I get the same thing from Richard Dawkins. It's just his religion.
Yeah. Yeah. I was an atheist from the age of 13 up until very recently. And,
really?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely. I was a complete atheist. Nothing was going to shake this view of the universe for me. And this last few years in researching the perfection of the human body and the fake law up against the God's law, as it were, and now this flat Earth business is the final nail in the coffin for me. I know there is a creator now, and it's really changed my entire life.
That's awesome to hear. I don't ever hear stories much like that, just because I'm usually making videos and not getting a chance to talk to people. But that's really cool to me, because I was, from going from a theist to atheist, and then I get to that realization of, look at this world, there's no way it's accidental. There's no way an apple seed knows to grow an apple tree and then make apples that have their own seed that are going to pass that seed on. It's like everything was just given to us. Live for free, eat for free, drink for free. And some assholes some guys came along and said, no, I own this tree and I own that water, and it's been downhill from there. That's just awesome, because more power to you. I don't believe in the gods that everybody else believes in either, but I know there's a creator.
Yep, absolutely. My next video is gonna, I guess I'm gonna lose a lot of folks, because I'm going to talk about what it means to me, and how this has actually made me look at the Bible, and not the Roman Catholic thing, but the King James 1611 and all the other books that were left out, and how that really shows what this world is really about right now.
It shows a lot. Yeah, I think that there's definitely truth in that book. I think it's been changed. I think it's been altered. I think I look at it as almost a progression of human history. You look at it and you see that we had slaves, and you look at it and you see that they killed people who had adultery, and they killed homosexuals. By no means do I feel that then you're supposed to take those laws and apply them to today. We should be more adult about things, more evolved, to say people are different, and people should be able to live their lives as they want to, as long as they're not encroaching on others. And so I think it's all a history of what's kind of gone on, but I do think it's been changed and altered. But I think it's awesome you're doing a video. I've only really done one religious video, and I lost a lot of people on that one too, because Christians want me. They say, well, you believe in a flat Earth, you have to be Christian, and I do. I'll say some things about the Bible too, but I just I think that Christianity is just another one of their tools to get people to be quiet and mind their business and wait for Jesus to come back. There's a lot of Christians who would let World War III start tomorrow because they think they're going to be saved, and I don't necessarily have that same belief. I think it's up to us to fix things.
I suspect that a lot of Christians who would support the start of World War III would be Zionist Christians, and I heard somewhere that there are more Christian Zionists than there are Jews in Israel. It wouldn't surprise me if that were the case. I think a lot of people understand that what we call Christianity was co-opted a long time ago. I could talk about it all night, but we're already well over time, so we're going to get to our final thoughts. Just before we do, from the live chat, Max Malone says, this is going back a little bit, that some people seem to think that we need all the answers to believe in flat Earth, but the globalists have huge problems with their data, and it's no problem. We see this all the time. People will find one or two problems with the flat Earth model and say, well, I believe in the ball, but that's what we call a non sequitur. Just because you have one or two problems, or 3 or 4 or 10 problems with flat Earth, or 100 problems with flat Earth, doesn't mean you then have to believe in spinning ball, because there are plenty of problems with spinning ball as well. And there's this false dichotomy out there of, well, there's parts of flat Earth I don't like, so I'm going to believe in the ball. Well, guess what? There's parts of flat Earth that I don't like either. Doesn't mean I'm going to believe in the spinning ball. That's just ridiculous. Now, we've also got a question, one more question from the live chat, Jeranism, and then we'll get to our final thoughts. And it's from Stay Clint, and he says, Jeranism, you said that you thought you'd found the secret about the flat Earth even up until February, but when did you first hear of Eric Dubay?
Oh, I probably heard that was probably November, or yeah, I would say it was November of last year, because that's when I went to his site, and I was looking at that time. I was looking at Apollo stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we like to be interactive with the live audience. We've had up to 80 people watching live tonight, and we appreciate them all coming in. I'm sorry that I couldn't read out more questions, but it has been a very hectic show, and it's gone very quickly. So what we like to do is go around and give people a chance for final thoughts. We'll start with you there, allegedly, Dave. Unfortunately, your internet cut out for a little while there, so you did leave us a part of the show, but hopefully you managed to catch most of it. Any final thoughts for episode 6 with the special guest of Jeranism?
Not really. I mean, I just I did my little bit of a rant a minute ago, but it's been great to have you on, actually, Jeran. It's it's an actual honour, because as I said, it's your videos have been quite an inspiration to me. So thanks a lot.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, we'll go over to Spain there. Matrix Decode once again. I don't think you and I got to speak quite as much tonight as we did last night, but that's okay. That's what the impromptu chats are all about. You and I get our say in there, but what are your thoughts to wrap it up for our 6th official episode of the BESR?
It's been a good show. It's been great to hear Jeranism's thoughts and answers to our questions. So thank you, Jeranism, and I look forward to your upcoming laser experiment.
Me too. I hope there's no waves eating phones today.
All right, then over to New York, David Weiss of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. Another enjoyable episode, I hope. Any final thoughts?
No, it was very good, always informing, new information. It's, I am, you were accusing me the other day of not being a Ball Earth skeptic, and I believe that I am, although I believe the Earth is flat. Like if you said, hey, you can have $100 if the Earth is flat, or $10,000 a week for the next 100 years if the Earth is a ball. Pick one. I'm going to go for the 100 now, because my belief is really strong. I'm still looking for evidence. Haven't seen any.
Yeah, I look for it too. I tell people I'm willing to change tomorrow. Just show me the 700-mile curve down the middle of the United States. We have tools to measure things.
Right. I'm not married to, I don't have an agenda to prove the Earth is flat. I just want to know the truth. And there is no proof of a ball Earth other than you're an idiot, you're a moron. Of course the Earth is a ball. Look at the globe. NASA, science.
Logic.
Logic, NASA, science. That's the best proof I've heard.
All right, thanks, Dave. And I guess we'll go over to you there, Jeranism. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. It's been terrific to have you on board. Plenty of good questions, plenty of good answers. The listeners have to take all this in and make up their own minds about everything. That's what we recommend they do. Any final thoughts you want to leave us for episode 6, and can we expect to see you on the show again at some point in the future?
Yeah, I'd love to be back. I think I heard some things too that always make me think, and I just think that I've learned so much just in getting out there and taking pictures and talking to other people, and that's what I wish everybody would do, because I really think that we could get to the bottom of things. It may not be every fact, but it's like you said, they don't have every fact either. And I see a lot of people answering questions for others in forums or in comment sections on YouTube, and I really do not like to do that so much, because you really want those people to find out on their own. I have a problem with, that's what got us in this predicament in the first place, is we all just took information and as fact and stored it away and said, okay, this is fact, where none of us were even asked to go and make sure that what they were saying was true. So that's why I always tell people, do your own experiments. Even if you see me do this 8-mile one tonight, if you just see that and say, well, it's flat because Jeran just showed me, well, everyone's not going to be as honest as I'm going to be when I do the test. So I would urge you not to trust me, just so that you get into the habit of never trusting anyone. It's not something that's very difficult to do, especially now that we're not even really going to start using a laser going forward. You can buy these super luminous flashlights for $50, and you have a nice camera, or somebody has a nice camera that they can zoom. You can prove it for yourself at 4, 5, 8, 10 miles. I think you can learn a lot. Like you said, watch the moon, track the moon for a week. They will teach you so much, and you'll feel so much. Every time you walk out of your house, you're going to look up for the moon. Where's the moon? It's like my wife now knows when the next full moon is. I mean, for all the years of my life, neither one of us could care less. And so now to have all that stuff, it just feels like you're a part of things. And I never felt like that before. Never felt like I felt right on this world or in this world. It always felt like a stranger here. And when you start to learn it for yourself, you'll be surprised at how quickly you don't feel that way anymore. So that's it. Keep your eye on my channel. I do have a email thing that people sign up for, and then I've been sending out little updates once a week saying what I'm going to be doing the following week. So in my next video, I'll make sure I put that in the description if you want to sign up for that. Because sometimes when we decide to do an experiment, it's a spur-of-the-moment thing. It's not something I planned all week. We just have a Wednesday night open, and we say, let's go to the beach and do X, Y, Z. So that's why I have that service, so I can just kind of send one email, and I don't have to go to 35 different forums and Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else to drop it. So anyway, that'll be my next description if you want to sign up for that. But I appreciate you guys having me on, and be back anytime.
Excellent. And again, for listeners, I'm sure most of them are familiar with you, but if they're not, they can find you at Jeranism on YouTube. Plenty of videos, something like 300,000 total views. You're doing good work, so keep it up, and I will look forward to having you on again. Final thoughts from me, just quickly. We've sorted out our lineup for the next few episodes for pretty much the rest of the first season of the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable. On July 22 next week, we've got Stinky Cash. The week after, we've got Stars Our Souls. The week after that, the Morgile is on board. And then the week after that, Wakey Wakey. So a full book of Flat Earthers joining us over the next few weeks, which leads me into my next final thought, which is that the details are still to be confirmed, but we're looking forward to having a proper Ball Earther on the show. In fact, we're going to round out Season 1 of this program with a Ball Earther coming on, and we're going to have a civil discussion. We might even have 2 Ball Earthers come on the show, maybe even 3, depending on how things go. We'll get them on, we'll have a civil, rational discussion. We'll let them put to us and to the listeners their best arguments as to why we should believe that we're on a spinning ball, spinning around on its axis at 1,000 miles an hour, around the equator, spinning around the sun, something like 190 million miles, hurtling through the galaxy, hurtling through the universe, all of these beliefs that we're told at school. We want a Ball Earther to come on board and tell us why we should believe in them. And if they can't give us these astrophysical arguments, even just explain to us why we should believe that the Earth has curvature when we can't measure it, or why the horizon seems to rise to eye level, or any of the things that the Flat Earthers are saying are reasons for Flat Earth, the Ball Earthers can come along and explain it on their model. Like I said, details are to be confirmed, but we're looking forward to this, so stay tuned to our channels. Of course, Matrix Decode there in Spain, allegedly Dave, D. Murphy 25, David Weiss of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, DITRH, and my channel, John LeBon. As soon as we have details confirmed, we'll let you know. And hey, maybe one of the listeners might want to be that spinning Ball Earther to come and put all of us in our place. So we've got a panel of Flat Earthers and myself, a Ball Earth Skeptic. Maybe you can make the good arguments, because so far we're struggling to find them. I'm looking through the live chat, I'm waiting for the good arguments, and they're just never there. But surely somebody out there can come and join us, and without getting angry, without getting emotional, without talking over people, just sit here and calmly, rationally discuss the Earth on which we stand. That's what we're hoping for. Now, finally, I want to say a huge thanks to the people who tune in every week. Like I said, we had almost 80 live listeners at some points during the show. We had more than 60 for the duration of the show. and the episodes are averaging more than 1,500 people per week. In fact, one of them has gone well over 2,000. So that means that there's an audience out there for this kind of conversation. And you would have noticed in the live chat, if you were there watching us live, that we did have a number of trolls come into the live chat. I banned them as soon as I could. What you have to understand is that all of these trolls making fake accounts about John LeBon, there must have been a dozen fake John LeBon accounts just in tonight's chat. They're not trying to stop me because they know they can't stop me. They're trying to stop you. So don't let them. In fact, if you don't like the trolling that's being done against people asking questions, the single best thing you can do is start making your own videos, asking your own questions, doing your own work. That's the single best thing you can do. I highly encourage you to do it because, look, I'm doing it. I'm not even a flat earther. I'm just sitting here enjoying conversation with flat earthers. It's a lot of fun. Nothing bad's happened to me. A few fools have made some bad accounts. That's the worst that can happen. And the best that can happen is you can do what we're doing right now, having good discussion, having fun. Many people all around the world who just want to talk about things. And what's more important than the earth on which we stand and the people telling us to believe that we're spinning around at 1,000 miles an hour? So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week on the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable. This has been episode 6 on July 15, and of course I'm here in Brisbane, Australia, so it's also July 16 for me as well. We'll catch you next week, 8 a.m. Wednesday, New York time, 10 p.m. Brisbane time. We're going to play this one out with an old favourite of mine, and Dave, I know that I promised you that we'd play out with Hot Chip. I meant next week. This week we're playing out with an old favourite of mine. This is Masonic Moon by the Elders of Zion, and I thank you once again for listening.
And discontain and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Under the Masonic moon, plans were made by the bankers in the back room. Get the president out of the way and hire Stanley Kubrick. Under the Masonic moon, under the Masonic moon, everyone hoped that the boys would come home soon. One more day and they'll drop from the plane, splash into the ocean. Under the Masonic moon, Werner von Braun and his conspirators got a free ride to the States. They turned Nazi into Nassau, they just couldn't wait. Under the Masonic moon,